I call this meeting to order at 7:02 PM. If you're able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could we have a roll call, please?
Johnson.
Here.
Kelly.
Here.
Mikulski. Polika.
Here.
Leaksmay.
Here.
Madam Mayor, I move we excuse Councilmember Mikulski from tonight's meeting.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now we need the approval of the agenda.
Madam Mayor, I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have a couple of presentations tonight that we are starting with. Presentation item 4A will be the resolution honoring the service of Fire Marshal Dennis Barr.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight this is slightly delayed, but my Fire Marshal Dennis Barr did make the decision to retire, leave us on October 23rd. And I will say he is one of the people for this department that has been a pillar. He's been a rock for the Ferndale Fire Department. When I stepped in as chief in February 2021, he was the one that was filling the vacancy when I got here. And it wasn't necessarily because he aspired and wanted to be fire chief, but he knew is what the fire department needed him to do. And he stepped up and he kept everything running, did a phenomenal job to take care of the department and the communities. And coming through the door, he was the one that helped me settle in and truly be successful as chief here in Ferndale Fire Department. I could always rely on him to turn to him for assistance, for guidance, for historical information. And he was the face for the fire department with our business community, our citizens. He launched our senior safety program, was in the schools, did so much, and has a true heart of service. And he leaves the void. You know, we have a lot of great people in our department, but him leaving definitely is a huge loss because he's going to be a hard one to replace. So with that, we have a resolution. Mayor, would you like to read the resolution, or would you like me to?
I was actually going to hand it to you since you're up there for you to read. That way you can also hand it to Fire Marshal Barr.
Hired, Fire Marshal Barr, if you want to join me up here. He looks a little different now that he's retired. I think every male firefighter, when they retire, lose a razor. So City of Ferndale resolution honoring the retirement of Fire Marshal Dennis Barr. Fire Marshal Dennis Barr has faithfully and honorably served the Ferndale Fire Department and the citizens of Ferndale for 25 years, demonstrating unwavering dedication, professionalism, and leadership. And Dennis Barr was appointed to the Ferndale Fire Department on September 9, 2000, and through his commitment to public safety and excellence in service, was promoted to the rank of sergeant on April 15, 2019, the rank of fire marshal on January 20th, 2020, and fulfilled the role of interim fire chief for the period the position was vacant. And throughout his distinguished career, Fire Marshal Barr has played a vital role in advancing fire prevention, life safety education, and code enforcement, significantly contributing to the safety and well-being of our community. And Fire Marshal Barr is known not only for his expertise and dedication, but also for his big personality, that's an understatement, infectious energy, and ability to bring humor and heart to every situation, making a lasting impression on colleagues, community members, and all who had the pleasure of working with him. And he has served as a mentor and role model to countless firefighters and public safety personnel, leaving a legacy for integrity, courage, and camaraderie. And the City of Ferndale and the Ferndale Fire Department wish to express our deepest gratitude and appreciation for Fire Marshal Barr's outstanding service and commitment. The City of Ferndale formally recognizes and honors Fire Marshal Dennis Barr on the occasion of his retirement and extends heartfelt congratulations and best wishes for fulfilling and well-deserved retirement. Be it resolved that a copy of this resolution be presented to Fire Marshal Barr as a token of our appreciation and respect. Adopted this 10th day of November, 2025. gift from the fire department. Yes, and I will tell you, he truly worked up to the last minute of his last day. And we talk about mentorship. In your last, couple weeks, I think Madison Heights had a new fire marshal, and he was bringing him in and showing him the ropes. And where most people would starting to check out, and he was literally on his last day, he still helped me try to get stuff done, so I appreciate you.
Any words?
Am I saying words?
A loss of words.
Thank you, Fire Marshal. Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
All right. We got so wrapped up into the acknowledging the retirement, we didn't adopt the resolution, so we need a motion.
I move we adopt the resolution honoring the service of Ferndale Fire Department Fire Marshal Dennis Barr.
Support.
May I have a motion? Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Polika.
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Leaks May.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you, Fire Marshal.
Thank you. Our second presentation of the night is the introduction of the new CED Director.
Thank you, Council. I'd like to welcome our new CED Director, Ross Kiro. He started today, actually. Ross joins us after an extremely competitive search for our replacement position, and I'll let him speak a few words just about himself and his interest in the role.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Truly honored and grateful to be here. And thank you to the interview committee for selecting me and bringing me on board, both Colleen and James. It's been a great day meeting everyone, going out in the community and learning more. The past couple of weeks I spoke with families and family members and friends who own businesses and who are residents in the city, and I'm extremely, extremely honored to be able to work for them and the rest of the business community and the residents. And I'm extremely looking forward to building on the foundation of the city. So thank you all very much.
Thank you and welcome. Welcome. Looking forward to working with you. All right. Adjusted action. All right, we are now coming to our call to audience, where you will have 3 minutes to speak on anything on or off the agenda. You can state your name and your address if you wish. Otherwise, you can sign a form in the back that states that. I open up call to audience at 7:11 p.m.
Good evening, Mayor Leaks May. Good evening, Council. I'm Jim Janowitz, 20-year resident of 580 East Oak Ridge Street, 5-year member and former chair of the Environmental Sustainability Commission, and I'm the guy who specified, sourced, and delivered Ferndale's first ever municipal rain barrel sale, diverting 2 million gallons annually of stormwater runoff from our combined sewer system, mitigating CSOs, combined sewer overflows. Our zero waste position enabled this volunteer-led initiative by procuring the grant that subsidized rain barrels for all residents, including those most in need, helping us to achieve our climate justice resolution of 2020. They have repeatedly and recently secured monies for sustainability, $100,000 worth to be exact, saving taxpayer monies while also meeting Ferndale's commitment to its climate action plan and maintaining our Michigan Green Communities Gold status for the 4th year in a row. Per our Human Resources Department just today, the fully burdened cost of our zero waste manager position is $85,000, not the $148,000 in the city manager's presentation to come. Literally, this position is paying for itself and then some. Realistically, resident value and mitigation of a worsening climate crisis will not be achieved without a dedicated person to administer such efforts and to find monies to offset them. Zero Waste recently secured a conservation fellow to, and I'll quote, support the sustainability team. Who will that team be if we eliminate the zero waste position? Speaking of teams, and also important here, since this position was created, they have consistently supported and shaped the efforts of volunteer environmental experts on our Environmental Sustainability Commission, where we deliver outsized outreach and impact for our city. Do not eliminate the zero waste manager position. The contention that their work will be assumed by other departments really means that that work will just slowly go away in the face of other operational needs. You know it will. It also means that no more sustainability grants will be procured and that we will not meet our own stated climate goals. Also, our climate action plan requires someone with skills that just don't exist in the other departments. Are we committed to our climate action plan or are we not? Our environmental stewardship is part of being a progressive city, and I'll repeat that. Our environmental stewardship is part of being a progressive city. Please do not vote to eliminate this position. Our residents deserve and require a path to climate resiliency, and this position delivers it. Thank you for your consideration of these items.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Leaks and council members. My name is Andrea Popovich. I live on 1445 Pinecrest Drive. I also currently serve as the chair of the Ferndale Environment and Sustainability Commission, the FESC, and have been on the commission since 2020. Over the past 2 years, our commission has had little to no consistent representation from City Council. I'll admit, I didn't anticipate how important that connection was until now. When we're sitting here having to justify a position that we've worked alongside for years, the Zero Waste Systems Manager. Without a council liaison, it feels like the work of the FESC has gone unseen, unheard, unrecognized, and simply unappreciated. And for those reasons, the value add of this position isn't fully understood. We've taken for granted that sustainability is just part of Ferndale, but we see now what happens when we don't show up for each other or for our community. A few days ago, when we asked about the possible elimination of this role, we were told it was half rumor, half true. Yet here we are learning that council is actually voting on it tonight. So while I know the decision may have already been made, I still want to speak to what is at stake. The Zero Waste Systems Manager has been instrumental in implementing our climate action plan, securing grants, mentoring fellows, and connecting our city to regional sustainability networks. These efforts bring funding and visibility that far exceeds the cost of the role. The city's projected savings of $148,000 doesn't align with the actual cost of $85,000 for the Zero Waste Systems Manager position that is including benefits. That doesn't account for the grants and the in-kind resources this position has brought in. Pre-COVID, we were talking about adding sustainability staff. Now we're talking about eliminating the only position that is dedicated to it. That's not just a personal choice or decision, it's a signal about Ferndale's priorities. Are we no longer committed to the values we build our reputation on, being equitable, progressive, sustainable, and resilient? So I ask, if sustainability is no longer important, then what is the purpose of the FESC? What message are you sending the residents, commissioners, partners, and the next generation when we cut the very role that drives our climate and waste reduction efforts? As the chair of the FESC and as a resident who deeply cares about our city's future, I urge you, please keep this position funded. Ferndale's leadership in sustainability has inspired others across Michigan. Let's not move backwards now. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Mayor Leaks May and Council. My name is Moshkan Raji. I'm a resident at 370 West Hazelhurst, and I've been a commissioner with the FESC since 2018. I'm also an environmental public health professor and a director of a public health program. I'm speaking in support tonight of the Zero Waste Systems Manager position. I'm frankly befuddled about why city leadership no longer thinks sustainability is a priority to its residents. I decided to move to Ferndale over 10 years ago because this was a community that represented my values. The city's mission is to be stewards of progress, anticipating needs, engaged with community, and serving with excellence. The 2024 guiding principles of City Council are to be progressive, equitable, sustainable, and resilient. 4 of the city's 8 strategic success factors reflect sustainability, public health, and climate resiliency. And as you'll see in our climate crisis resolution, Plan Ferndale, Climate Action Plan, Declaration of Commitment to Anti-Racism, and the Waste Reduction and Recycling Master Plan for Downtown Ferndale, all of which are noted on the handout you received, there are numerous ways that we have reiterated our city's commitment to sustainability. As a professor of public health, I know that this is not the time to pull back on this work. We face health threats from climate change directly in our community, poor air quality from wildfires out west and in Canada, extreme weather events, flooding and mold risks, and more extreme heat days. And people of color and low-income people bear the brunt of these health problems. I never thought that my progressive community of Ferndale would think 2026 was an acceptable time to cut sustainability funding. We also deserve an explanation to why the cost restructuring plan lists cost savings of terminating the Zero Waste Systems Manager position at $148,000 when the fully burdened cost of the position is only $85,000. Why did the plan also neglect to mention the position's numerous responsibilities in implementing the Climate Action Plan? By only covering the waste management related duties, the cost restructuring plan gives the appearance that the position's duties can be assumed by other DPW staff. These duties require specific expertise. The level of disruption is not low. This vote represents a pivotal crossroads in Ferndale's sustainability goals. We all know that programs and initiatives die when there is no allocated resources. If this city eliminates this position, rolling back its commitment to sustainability and equity, then it should publicly rescind its stated statements and plans. I urge City Council to please vote to keep this position and prioritize our community's health. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Leaks May and council members. My name is Jason Schneeman, and I live at 676 West Hazelhurst Drive. I joined the FESC this past year after moving to Ferndale in late 2023. I'm here today to offer comments in support of the Zero Waste Systems Manager role, both as a new resident and also as a career sustainability professional. For some background, over the last 10 years of my career, I have served in various climate and sustainability roles at 3 major Michigan corporations across 3 different industries. I was on those teams through their growth phase, and in some cases, subsequent reductions due to changes in focus, lack of funding, or external political pressures. Due to this background, I can speak firsthand to the importance of having a technically competent and focused individual on a team to consistently drive and maintain sustainability work at an organization. To be direct, lacking this focus and competency always leads to watering down of any mission or vision, no matter how well-intentioned. Sustainability is a necessarily long-term body of work, and in that way, it always gets pushed by the needs of the present. To prevent this short-term thinking, sustainability cannot be just a single line item within any one person's job description, or something that is shared, or a shared responsibility that lacks direct accountability. It is an incredibly deep and wide field and requires constant vigilance and focus to prevent any efforts from disappearing. I ask the council, lacking the systems manager position, is there any person in the Ferndale government who will have direct ownership of sustainability in their job description? That brings me to my second viewpoint, that of a new resident. My wife and I are both in the sustainability career field, having moved here from Ann Arbor. Ferndale was immediately attractive to us as a place to put down roots. We could see from Ferndale's public presence that here was a place where sustainability is not just a buzzword, but actually something that is acted upon. Recently, a coworker on my sustainability team was looking to move to the area, and after raving to her about Ferndale, her family is also moving here. This type of attraction disappears over time if our actions fail to live up to our words and commitments. I joined the FESC to help advance this action, and as the words of some others have highlighted, losing the competency and focus that the systems manager provides to the city will derail our sustainability efforts in a significant way. And we lose our ability to speak credibly about how Ferndale is leading the charge on this topic. I hope that the council votes to maintain this position, and thank you for your time.
Hello, Mayor Leaks-May and council members. I am Nicole Ladoucer-Janowitz of 580 East Oak Ridge Street. I've been a FESC member for over 5 years and was a Plan Ferndale Committee member in 2022. I'm here to advocate for keeping the Zero Waste Systems Manager position funded in Ferndale with Logan Appleby in that role. Community engagement and relationship building is a vital part of this role, and more than the grant writing, that is only one aspect of it. Community engagement opens two-way communication with the Zero Waste Manager and residents. I've served on the FESC under 4 staff liaisons, and the FESC has flourished under Logan's leadership. I have observed that he has created more public events for residents and engaged with them more proactively than any of his predecessors, offering more educational opportunities to respond to our global climate crisis. He offers his contact information to residents, welcoming questions and feedback. Aligning 2 of our critical success factors here, this role successfully combines an engaged community with climate resiliency. Another critical success factor is strong regional partnerships, and Logan has achieved this beyond our region. He serves nationally on the Volganaw Climate Initiative Compost Committee, and within Michigan, he has a leadership role with the Michigan 2030 Food Waste Coalition and is active with EAGLE, Michigan Recycling Coalition, Next Cycle, SOCRA, and of course within Oakland County. Other municipalities look to Ferndale as a leader in climate action. Ferndale is known for being a proactive community ahead of the curve that other communities emulate. Ferndale residents value the level of engagement that we have today. Serving on this commission for over 5 years, I have heard an unsolicited drumbeat message from many residents who moved to Ferndale because it is known for being environmentally sustainable and progressive. I am one of those residents who moved here for those reasons, and Logan is as well, serving in the community where we live. To continue to meet residents' expectations for sustainability, we need a full-time dedicated staff member at the very minimum, and we already have this in place with our Zero Waste Manager. Logan is invested in Ferndale's guiding principles, making our community progressive, equitable, sustainable, and resilient. Residents are expecting this from us. Let's be accountable to them, and let's continue the work we're doing today with the staff we already have in place. In January 2024, Logan jumped into this job with energy, passion, and vigor and hasn't stopped. Please do not vote to eliminate this position, that we can continue this work. Thank you so much.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Tessa Benziger. I own Walking Lightly, which is Metro Detroit's first zero waste store. I chose to open this business in Ferndale in 2021 because this community's response to reducing waste was so heartfelt and genuine. The residents of Ferndale care deeply about the climate crisis and want to live more sustainably, and Logan Appleby, as the city's zero waste systems manager, has made this so much more accessible to residents while moving Ferndale in a positive direction. Cutting this position would be a huge loss for the community, negatively impacting the residents, businesses, and the city of Ferndale as a whole. It is disingenuous to say that the work of this role could be absorbed by the current DPW workers. While Logan might do a lot of physical work, such as ensuring that compost bins are not contaminated, the scope of that work should not be misunderstood as a singular task. He uses this information to further educate residents, ensure that composting contracts are upheld, and communicate trends with colleagues in the field. all in service to this city, just as one example. I am a resident of Royal Oak and sit on that city's Environmental Advisory Board. Through that role, I know that currently Ferndale has a reputation as a leader in sustainability in Southeast Michigan, in no small part because the city has employed a staff person dedicated to sustainability for many years. I also know that a city without a staff person dedicated to climate action will not have cohesive priorities or action on sustainability. And seeing as the presented restructuring proposal already labels seeking and managing grants as secondary activities, it is clear that Ferndale will fall behind other communities in working towards Michigan's climate goals. The City of Ferndale states on its website that it sees sustainability as a foundational planning tool, ensuring equity among the environment, society, and economy. That these three elements drive sustainability in the city's long-term planning and decision-making, ensuring that sustainability is thoughtfully programmed into each municipal function. This certainly cannot be true while cutting the one staff position that helps integrate sustainability across departments. I hope very sincerely that the city will reconsider cutting Logan's position and continue to uphold Ferndale's reputation as a city that prioritizes sustainability, climate action, and future-oriented decision-making. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Danny Labat, and I live at 3300 Bermuda. I'm also here tonight to urge you to reconsider the zero waste management position for the city of Ferndale. I'm newer to Ferndale. I moved here a year and a half ago with my husband, Peter. And I am actually a marketing professional that works in consumer goods with a specialty in sustainability. With that role has come a ton of advocacy work and education across the country. And I've been so proud the last year to go to Sacramento, California, meeting with Gavin Newsom's office, to walking the halls of the Senate Hart Building, telling people how composting can work and how cities like Ferndale are leading the way. So to hear about this position being eliminated is extremely distressing, to say the least, as you can hear from a lot of people here tonight. But from an advocacy perspective and education perspective, we still have a long way to go. I think a lot of people in Ferndale might not know that if food waste were a nation, it would emit more carbon emissions than the United States or China. We are making leaps and bounds here in Ferndale, one that can be piloted and copied across the country. It's such a shining program that we have so much more we could be doing with it, whether it's getting more grants, whether it's highlighting our work. And I just really want to encourage you guys to keep this role. There's still a lot of work to be done here. And I also was able to read what was the proposed usage of this funding, which was potentially other impactful programs. And I think that wording was really concerning because we know that our zero waste programs are impactful. So I would just encourage rethinking through what is the actual cost. And I think it's not low. I think it will be very high. And that's all. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Leaks May and City Council members. My name is Matt Connors. I live on 321 Flowerdale Street and have been a Ferndale resident for 5.5 years. I'm calling on all of you to vote against eliminating the Zero Waste Systems Manager position, as I believe that this position has offered a lot to our community so far and will continue to do so in the future. One of the early offerings that I've experienced directly through this position is the Municipal Compost Program, originally offered in 2021. Upon hearing about this, I was very eager to sign up and participate because I believe that managing food waste is a crucial sustainability program that every municipality should be investing in. To this very day, I am still regularly utilizing the compost program and take pride living in one of the only cities in the area that has been actively managing its food waste. The fact that Detroit is finally following suit and starting their own municipal composting program has shown that Ferndale has been ahead of the curve on sustainability efforts and that we will continue to be a leader in Metro Detroit through our sustainability initiatives. I believe that voting to eliminate the Zero Waste Systems Manager goes against the City of Ferndale's mission, guiding principles, and values of being progressive, sustainable, and innovative, while also being a leader in the area in terms of climate resiliency. I believe that the Zero Waste Systems Manager is a crucial position that is required for Ferndale to commit its climate action plan of reducing emissions by 63% by 2030 and to becoming carbon neutral by 2050. A couple goals laid out in this plan is to reduce carbon intensity of our city through the adoption of solar installations for residents and commercial businesses, and to lead by example for carbon neutrality in our city's buildings by retrofitting our city-owned buildings for electrification. From my understanding, Logan has been actively working towards establishing our police solar array to 100%, which is in line with our goals described in the city's climate action plan. He's also brought in $100,000 worth of grant money, along with securing an Eagle Climate Fellow who will start in January. Additionally, Logan is turning his attention to efficiency and accuracy of municipal energy bills and prioritizing the sanitation rate study to reduce impacts on residents. By keeping this position, the city will continue to be a leader in the region for climate resiliency, continuing to serve its residents, and continuing to stay in alignment with its mission, guiding principles, and values. As a resident of Ferndale, I am thrilled to know that my taxes that I pay to the city are being allocated for these purposes and fully support the continuation of these efforts. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and citizens of Ferndale. My name is Peggy Harp, and I live on West Saratoga. I'm here tonight to talk about our flock contract. It's been just 2 weeks since we met in City Council, and since then, 6 cities have gotten rid of their flock cameras in 2 weeks. In October alone, there was 10 municipalities that got rid of their flock cameras. 21 cities in the last 11 months. Just yesterday, 2 cities in Washington disabled their flock cameras because a judge determined that flock data is public data and that people could get that data with a Freedom of Information Act request. So, you know, these kind of things keep coming up. Senator Wyden in Oregon is having a federal investigation into the security of flock data. And so I just urge City Council to think about this, that why are all of these places deciding to get rid of it after they initially thought it was a great idea? And I think, you know, flock comes in and they have a product that makes a lot of promises, and they didn't really think through all of the consequences. And now we're seeing those consequences, and it's very concerning. Reasons for people disabling or canceling flock are they break contracts, privacy of activists, privacy of people seeking gender affirmative care, reproductive rights, ICE, giving information to ICE, and there's other reasons too. And that's really all I wanted to say tonight. I think that there will be a lot more of these kind of things coming out about flock. And, you know, I think we can get ahead of the game. And I know that our police department is capable of solving crimes without this tool. Thank you.
Hi. Well, thank you for having us to speak, Mayor Leaks May and City Council. My name is Michelle Peters. I live at 778 Farmdale Street. Some of you might recognize me because you've definitely seen me before. I was actually here to speak about a project that Grant Logan works on right now. That was a $100,000 grant-funded project that came in through the state of Michigan through Eagle. Mostly what I'm here to say is just from the heart, as a Ferndale resident, as somebody who's lived here for 8 years, and this is my adopted hometown, and I love it so much. I can't stop talking about how much we're leaders. I work with local governments all the time. I work with utility companies all the time on sustainability and energy efficiency.
this is what I do. This is what I care very deeply about. In fact, I'll probably see some of you guys on Thursday at the Oakland County Sustainability Meeting. I really hope so. But Logan has brought so much value to the city with what he does and how he does it and the connections that he's built. Everybody knows who he is. My clients outside of the city of Ferndale know who he is. He is a leader. That is what we are in Ferndale. We are leaders. We are those people that everybody looks to. My sister lives in the city of Monroe. They look at us as leaders to help show how to do things. So I really hope that we consider what we are, leaders, in any of our decisions tonight. Thank you so much.
Hi, Mayor. Hi, City Council. Chris Hall, 1845 Symes. I wanted to circle back to the last council meeting where we discussed the vacant properties. First, I want to say thank you to everyone for the movement on these issues, but I still believe it's not enough. I find it offensive that people on this list, homeowners, feel like they're being stigmatized, but I will circle back to that later. I understand that circumstances can change when people pass away and things happen. When a property owner doesn't owe taxes to the city or have their city bills in good standing, I can see the potential for us to work something out. However, when property owners have not paid their taxes, actively avoid communication by barricading their stairs, removing house numbers, backing their vehicles to conceal their identities, it becomes laughable. I do not have sympathy for anyone who continues to lie to our city staff. If it takes 8 months or until Voldemort, aka Donald Trump, is out of office, we must address these vacant properties through probate. Living next to a vacant home can create a lot of difficulties for our neighbors, and it impacts their day-to-day lives and affects their sense of community. There are several ways that the situation can play out. One incident that happened I think a week and a half ago, 1963 Symes, I think I've repeated that for the last year and a half since the lady died September 11th of 2024. There was a fire that occurred. Our firefighters had to use an axe to get into the backyard and put the fire out. I do not want my taxes that I pay on time to go to whoever's living in the house, lying that they're somewhere else, and it's like a little light upstairs, and they're just having a good old damn time for our firefighters to be in danger. I think it's crap. Lastly, in regards to everyone's here right now supporting Logan, I appreciate everyone. I'd rather rake my own leaves. I'd rather not attend silly events in this city or anything like that for him to keep his job. Period. We had this situation before. This is why people are leaving and going to work somewhere else, because apparently the culture is getting toxic. And on the end, it's just out of control. And I just want to say thank you again to everyone that's here to support him.
Hi, Alan Hale, 13-year resident at 1903 Woodward Heights. I just wanted to kind of start with a question of how many people got to grow up in a world without annual wildfires during your summers? There's not a whole lot we can do about that as residents here, but we can make impacts in small and different ways. And one of those ways has been charted in Ferndale with our zero waste coordinator position and supporting all of the work that FESC does for our city. I think when I read what's in the packet, I read a pretty big misunderstanding of what that role does. It's a lot more than just managing our compost and recycling. And I think it kind of talks against a lot of what's happened across our public planning processes over the years, where we have our master land use plan process, our climate action plan, and all of these are documents that kind of chart our direction and strategy as a city. And these didn't come out of nowhere. They came out of hundreds of Ferndale residents helping input and clearly saying that this is a priority for us. So I'm here to really support, as others have said, making sure we maintain that position, but also consider this position was also intended to be a start of what Ferndale needs to tackle as different challenges across our city. So continuing to look at our master land use plan and our climate action plan documents. Those are going to be, I've been part of 3 different iterations of our planning process in Ferndale now. There's going to be another one here soon. So making sure that we look to those as our guiding documents as we're making these budgetary decisions and not going back on our values and going back on the work of our residents to create these rules. I'm really proud to live in Ferndale for the progressive values and tackling these hard problems and setting examples for other communities like we do. I'm here to really represent a future Ferndale that I want my daughter to grow up in, and I want future generations to grow up in. And those generations are looking to the people in charge today to solve these problems so that they don't have to. So yeah, I think today I'm just here to reiterate, please maintain that position. I think what I, again, read in the packet was a semantics error when it really states it's really about like DPW operations and compost and recycling management. And if anything, it's going with semantics, maybe it should be retitled as the sustainability strategy manager and grow in scope. Thank you.
Evening, Dave Cottrell, 1610 Bowfield, 36-year resident of Ferndale. Been very involved in the community for a very long time. Regarding the fiscal year, cost reduction plan, I like keeping the city elections on odd years, as we just had. We had a very involved election, and I believe a lot more turnout for the city election than most years. Odd years allow city elections to get the attention they need. And also what brings out voters is when their voices are heard and that they actually have a choice, which they certainly did this time. In past years, in the even years, the city elections would get lost in the massive elections, just as the school board and the library elections tend to get lost in the even years with the state and federal races. In past years, there have actually been forums when citizens could hear the candidates in the school board and in the library elections, and that we could bring interest into our elections by having it like all of them local elections on odd years. Elections really rely on time, money, and volunteers. With even only elections, the time and volunteers will be diluted amongst all the candidates. Like, do I work on a U.S. Senate or Congressman's race, or do I work on the city election? And it would be in favor of whatever incumbent had the most money with how the elections would end up being. People who vote in city elections are really invigorated voters, and they also tend to vote in primaries. So you could keep, and the last point is that the city campaign apparatus stays alive by voting in both even and odd years. You're having people who work on campaigns in even and odd years, not like nothing on the odd year and then expecting a whole bunch of people to appear on the even year. So I would really urge you just to keep the odd year city elections. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Simon Cohen. I live at 954 West Marshall Street. Just a comment about the odd year elections. I don't know if you guys would have been able to pass the Headley thing on an even year election. Just want to put that out there. Last week, I was on a town hall Zoom call with the city, watching what seemed like the city trying very hard to sell a deeply unpopular system of mass surveillance with Flock. That not only wildly goes against our values, but would also cost the city almost $30,000 a year. Tonight, we are told we have to make cuts to an incredibly popular part of Ferndale, which is our commitment to sustainability. These two costs are not separate. This week, they're being pitted against each other. If this was a movie, I think it would be considered probably by everyone in this room to be incredibly heavy-handed writing. You are not only voting on the zero waste manager position, you are proving to us as our council whether you are ready to sacrifice our values to fund a problematic, inequitable, and possibly dangerous vision of the future. Please stand up for us. Please do not eliminate this position, and please do not renew the FLOC contract. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deanne Nuxall. I live at 954 West Marshall. Since I moved to Ferndale 4 years ago, I've been fortunate enough to benefit time and time again from the work of the Zero Waste Coordinator position. Unlike many of the people who've spoken tonight, I do not work in the sustainability field, so I speak only from personal experience. As I'd imagine most of the residents you represent do. When I moved to Ferndale, I could not keep a houseplant alive. A year or so after I moved here, I saw a sign for the Ferndale compost program that was in its beta phase at the time and thought, why not? It's here. And I started composting my food scraps. And then the following spring, I saw the compost pile as I was walking by Kulik, and I thought, why not? It's here. I'm gonna go to Ace Hardware, I'm gonna buy a couple seed packets. Maybe I can try some tomatoes or something. The next year I heard about the rain barrel sale, and I thought, why not? It's here. And I picked up a rain barrel so that I could water plants in my front yard where I didn't have a spigot. It would have been prohibitively expensive to put one in, and suddenly I have a new part of my garden available to me. Then that fall, I heard about the grant to distribute native seed packets. And that was supported by the Zero Waste Coordinator. And I thought, why not? I've been meaning to grow more native plants. 5 years after living here, my weekly trash haul has decreased probably by 50% based on how often I have to take my trash to the curb. I'm able to grow a decent amount of my household's produce at home, limiting the amount of energy waste from food transport and plastic waste. I've even become the crazy squash lady where my friends always leave my house with produce and frequently try to turn me down. But my point is, outside of the many residents in here who I would qualify as outstanding in their commitment to sustainability, your average resident will not go out and seek out sustainability initiatives. Maintenance of existing initiatives is not enough. Visibility to Ferndale citizens is a key to the effectiveness of our sustainability work, and I do not believe that outreach work will be supported if management of the compost program is moved under DPW and the other aspects of the role are absorbed by the current staff. It's unrealistic to expect individual residents and volunteers on FESC to support Ferndale's climate goals if the city is not putting its money where its mouth is. Individual responsibility is not going to get it done in this case. Ferndale needs a dedicated sustainability role to make our climate vision viable. Thank you.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name's Logan Appleby. I'm here as a resident at 313 Flowerdale. So part of the reason I moved to Ferndale was because of the sustainability values and equity values and progressive values that we use as guiding principles and as part of our core values. So I am here today to speak in support of this position as a professional in the space, not necessarily as a staff person. I was recommended to speak by our county commissioner. You know, he believes that this is an important part of what we do in Ferndale. And he said something that stuck with me, that our budget is our values. And I think that's reflected at home, you know, by all of us as we go through a tough budgeting process and a tough economic time. And that really stuck with me when he shared that. I just want to share that Ferndale has been a leader in this space since 2017. We've had a sustainability staff person or two and interns for 8 years. It's one of our, sustainability is one of our guiding principles, and covers one of our a direct critical success factor and many of our others. So I want to speak a little bit about past staff people. In the past, staff have brought in hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of grants. They've written plans, climate action plans, and worked with consultants on others that have been renowned in the sustainability space and in the local space. I'm still asked to speak about sustainability plans that we have in Ferndale that I did not actually work on, that were done years ago. And I think that speaks to the quality that Ferndale has put into this and what makes Ferndale a special place. So I do want to speak a little bit about the zero waste manager position, it encompasses more than compost and recycling. In my role competencies, the Climate Action Plan Administration is equal to the Solid Waste Systems Administration. Two of my 3 work plan deliverables for this year are decreasing residential carbon energy intensity by creating a creating and implementing a residential home energy efficiency program. It's important for us to decrease resident costs as much as we can and support that work in a time where it is challenging at home to do these things. The other is decreasing our municipal carbon intensity. That goal is huge as it reduces our costs, improves our facilities, and reduces our greenhouse gas emissions. So, since I've started here, I've worked to reduce sanitation rates for residents and right-size our sanitation system. I've brought in numerous grants and grant funding. We've caught up on city programs and infrastructure that had been left in staff transition, including battery recycling and the solar array. We've increased equitable access to recycling through a mandatory recycling ordinance. And we've supported departments as they, transition to EVs they wouldn't get rebates otherwise. So thank you all for your time, and I appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Sharon Chess. I live on Earl Boulevard, and I want to speak to the FLOC program. By coincidence, I received a traffic ticket in the city of Garden City, and I deserved it. I was speeding on a residential street, which I'm always pissing and moaning about people doing that by Gary Park in front of my house. But I took advantage of that opportunity after the gentleman was very polite in handing me my citation and ticket. I asked him, do you have FLOC in Garden City? Yes. I said, what about other communities? Inkster has it, Livonia has it, Canton has it. So if we vote not to have FLOC, we will be the hole, like the donut hole, in all of the other surrounding communities. We're in a precarious situation. We're just south of 8 Mile and Woodward. Detroit practices the green light program. So the businesses are protected by that. They virtually sign up to have cameras watch their business. Recently, we had an incident that fortunately didn't come, to fruition with what was going to happen to us on Halloween. And when you are a victim, when you have been violated in any way, when your business has been destroyed, you want every possible opportunity of any kind of technology that is available to apprehend the people who perpetrated those violations. FLOC isn't perfect, but like every new technology that's introduced, it will get better with oversight, with cooperation. When you're bringing in information from areas that are not like Ferndale, like Washington or Oregon, speak to me about communities that are surrounded, that we are surrounded by. Don't talk to me about states and cities that aren't like us. Our location is best served by the FLOC program. And please don't eliminate that, and don't eliminate Logan's position. If eliminating FLOC and Logan's position, the purpose saving money is to go and try to resurrect the Kulik Center. It's not nearly enough money, and it won't make an impactful difference on resurrecting Kulik. So please consider the dollars that are saved in the direction that it will go. It will not resurrect Kulik. Other things have to be done. Please keep FLOC, make my community safe as is. If you're going to bring in residents who have been violated, or black or brown people where maybe the program isn't the best, then let them come to speak. Let the people who have been violated and the businesses who have been broken into or displaced somehow or another, let them come to the table and speak about their situation, not us. Thank you.
All right. Call to audience closes at 7:56. And we are moving on to our consent agenda. Item 7A, approval of the October 27, 2025 meeting minutes. 7B, approval of the resolution to authorize Maxlow Hospitality LLC as a qualified licensee for the Ferndale Social District. 7C, approval of the listed appointments and reappointments to the city boards and commissions. 7D, approval of proposal by Fishbeck for methane monitoring at the Southwest Yard in the amount not to exceed $30,000. 7E, approval of quote from CDW/G for replacement laptops in the amount not to exceed $13,401.22. 7F, approval to create an Oakland County investment pool account. 7G, approval of the state and local cybersecurity grant agreement. 7H, approval of joinder agreement and with Marathon Health for My Life Wellness Clinic. 7I, approval of bills and payrolls as submitted by the Finance Director and subject to review by the Council Finance Committee.
Madam Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We are now moving on to our regular agenda. 8A, lead service lines replacement update and consideration of staffing increase.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So last time we talked a lot about the program itself and included a staffing recommendation. We will do a short recap this time on the program itself, spend much more time this time addressing some council concerns and questions on the staffing recommendation that we made following the program updates. So council direction, October 2025, was to look at condensing the verification timeline from 12 years to 6 years. The second thing that we were asked to look at was to see how we could expand outreach, analyze the self-reporting tool participation. Third thing was show year-round use of staff beyond the verification program. Number 4 was to clarify how in-house staffing would improve efficiency, cost savings, and reliability. Then number 5 was to look at the specific budgetary impact according to fund distribution. So briefly, overview of the recap, 2,238 lead service lines replaced since 2021. That's 138 last year, slightly stepped down because of funding. We expect that we have about 3,750 lead lines that are estimated remaining. The CDSMI from October of last year showed 6,143 unknowns. And then I just made a quick note, the self-reporting tool is good for reporting. It's actually excellent for reporting, but it can be a little bit confusing for our residents. So what they see is not as simple as what I'm going to explain here from the spreadsheet, but one of the things that we're working on now, and we would like to have up in the next couple of weeks, is a online spreadsheet of all 10,000 services pulled from our GIS data. Now that we've got a good handle on that, that just makes things abundantly clear for anyone. If you live on Marshall, you can see your address, you can see the build year, you can see all 3 areas of confirmation. So kind of look at that, see some patterns, but this is going to be on the website with everything else. So if you have an address in the city, you'll be able to see what we have for your address. So the first thing that we looked at, condensing the timeline from 12 to 6. We looked at a 6-year plan. That requires roughly a double annual output verification, so from roughly 460 to about 849 verifications. So doing these early verifications will allow us for better prioritization, planning, ensures regulatory compliance. It also saves money. So the 12 years saved money. This plan would save more money because it avoids cost escalation for the final 6 years. And we do beat the contractor rate, and since we're not paying years 7 to 12, That means, and there's also some participation in this number, but it looks like we would save, for the total cost of the program, roughly 2.4 million. And to do this verification work, we would use 2 staff members for roughly 6 months, performing 8.5 verifications a day to get to the roughly 849 verifications needed annually. The supplemental work, since we've condensed the timeline, there is less time for supplemental work. So it actually ends up that there's roughly, if you do accept the recommendation to backfill 2 positions, one of those years will be spent on verification work because it's 2 employees, 6 months, and then 2 employees, 6 months for other supplemental work. So it's 1 year and 1 year. So the participation scenario logic. This is the self-reporting tool. So in addition to making sure that we promote the self-reporting tool, we are sending out letters to all of our unknowns in our lead services. There is going to be a QR code to do the self-reporting tool with that. It's on our bill. We're going to continue to do social media. We're going to continue to make sure that it's front-loaded in our lead service line replacement program website. But so far, since August 9th of last year, we've got 394 self-reports received since the launch. So what I wanted to do is kind of put specific numbers to certain participation rates. So looking at 25, 33, and 50, which I'll say 25 was our planning case. 33 is kind of what we're leaning towards now, but I will say it's a little bit positive. 50% is incredibly positive. I just don't see us pushing it up to 50%. Maybe we could, but I did want to include that participation rate. And the way I came up with these numbers is I took what we have as an unknown. I took the participation rate. So if we have 6143, multiply that by 33%, you've got how many lead service lines we now have information on through the self-reporting tool. We know that we have a 57% lead copper rate, and we know that roughly 1/5 of lead service lines have been replaced in a basement and come up copper. So it's lead that appears to be copper. So those are still going to have to be verified. So what we end up getting is a rate of about 0.45. Multiply that by the unknowns, by the participation rate, and then we see that even if we have increased our participation, we will still need, at our planning rate, 33%, 5,219 verifications. So staffing approach and integration. The third thing that we wanted to show is what year-round staff would actually look like, and changing it, condensed it to about half the time. So I don't think I was clear when I talked about this, but one thing that I wanted to make sure to mention is that in this case, we would recommend using 1 experienced highway division employee and 1 water division employee to shift into that verification work. So it's not necessarily that we're hiring 2 new people, putting them on the verification process is a little higher skill. It requires some people that are cross-trained, understand how to use equipment. So what we would be doing in this scenario is we would take 2 qualified workers and put them on that. We would backfill them. The 2 new hires would support parks, forestry, highway, water, and general DPW work, some of the work that our 2 experienced members are unable to perform because they're doing other jobs. So the additional labor in this case would also be available for storm response, snow calling coverage, seasonal capacity challenges. We would have 2 more on the bench for any after-hours emergencies. And we would also need them or use them appropriately when we have a capacity issue like peak season for leaf collection season or snow plowing, other times where you need a larger amount than you actually have in a division. So the verification work, again, will be 2 cross-trained crew members, 6 months of the year. Remaining time will be reallocated to core DPW operations and preventative maintenance. Staff split percentage for that remaining 1 year is next. So the cross-divisional work distribution, 1 FTE because we have roughly 1 year, because we have 2 employees working 6 months of time, is available outside of verification work. So what that looks like and what we've kind of came up with for where we need to catch up is tree work 50% of the time for that 1 year, 25% water and sewer PM, and I'm going to talk about tree work and GIS inspections. Fleet and yard maintenance and GIS inspections make up the remaining 25%. that 100% represents 1 FTE. And forestry and tree management looks like tree removals, pruning, stump grinding, storm debris response, fleet and yard management, GIS inspections. I'll talk about a little bit more. But that added labor lets our skilled operators focus on higher level tasks, inspections, GIS collection, preventative maintenance, and those are all important to running an efficient department. So new laborers will handle the routine and seasonal work. So the cost savings and avoidance. Just looking at forestry work, 50% of one full-time staff member is roughly 880 hours. That added labor will increase annual forestry output. And just so you understand what, to put into context what those hours mean, right? We have, every 6 years, we need to trim roughly 8,500 trees on a maintenance schedule. That means that we need to prune 1,400 trees a year. We have a 3-man crew, which is where some of these numbers come from. That is roughly 4,200 hours total that would need to be performed if they spent 1 hour each on 1,400 trees. So that just means that at the start of the year, 67% of their time for an entire year is already booked if we're able to maintain trees every 6 years. So internal performance, wish I could put a bigger bow on this, but our internal performance remains competitive with contractors and reduces response delays. So looking at neighboring communities, I was able to price check our internal cost against qualified contractors working in neighboring communities. There's really a low, there's a mid and a high. Where we end up is pretty close to the mid. So looking at $100,000 worth of work, at our rate, which is actually roughly 748 hours, which is all the combined removals and trimming that we would repurpose these 880 hours towards. We're about 7,000 higher than the lowest contractor, about 2,000 better than the mid, and 12,000 better than the high. So that work would allow us to provide cost avoidance, service benefit, it prevents emergency overtime, it aligns operations, increases capacity in an asset type with deferred maintenance backlog, which I already explained with the trees. The GIS work is a little more clear for cost savings. 220 hours of work, which is 12.5% of that 1 FTE, means that we can perform GIS data collection internally at roughly half the cost of an engineering contract rate. So $70 to $80 an hour. It's a DPW labor plus a truck versus 140 to 160 for an hour of a consultant's time. So doing this work internally will allow us to maintain our current asset data. It'll enable faster field decisions, support work order management, scheduling, allows for better planning, better record keeping, builds internal technical capacity for future GIS and engineering efforts, and that is a pretty important consideration. So workforce and community impact, just to talk a little bit about what like cross-training in GIS, hydro excavation, asset inspection means is that it prepares our staff for more advanced technical roles. We hope that as we do this advanced work, as our guys get experience in this work, that they'll be able to do a little bit more in GIS tech or engineering tech positions. It builds internal expertise, and potentially we can reduce future dependence on consultants and do it at a better rate. So it strengthens our recruitment internally and retention by creating growth pathways within DPW. Our crew leaders, hopefully Charles is here for a long time. He's a great supervisor, but for our crew leaders that are ready to step up into that next position, he's going to be there for a minute. So if they show advanced understanding and talent and can train themselves in GIS and engineering, it's helpful to have that position, another pathway for them to move forward. And it supports our operations. So it also supports long-term succession planning at DPW for those technical positions. And community benefits are good too. More consistent, timely service delivery across seasons, improve responsiveness to snowstorm, snow, and emergency events through deeper bench strength. Adding 2 people could be the difference between 12 guys working a 20-hour shift and a 24-hour shift. Just because you have 2 extra people to call from, if those 2 people can be there for a snowstorm, it means everyone gets off work at 8 a.m. instead of 10 a.m. And that's a big thing for everyone that's working. It also enhances data accuracy, ensures resources and maintenance are directed where they're most needed. It also frees our supervisors and senior operators from doing routine tasks. The more time they spend cleaning filters and not doing like right-of-way inspections, road inspections, advanced GIS work, the less they're actually able to allow the greater focus on safety, planning, infrastructure reliability, improving their department. Financial efficiency and service reliability. So I'm not going to read the entire matrix, but I'll just say that these two extra positions would improve our efficiency and reliability across all operations. It would reduce total cost of service. It would strengthen our readiness and response capacity. And then the final slide, a lot of information on this one, but what I wanted to do, and I hope this is not overly complicated, but this is kind of a shifting of positions, so I thought it was important to include actual splits for the two labor positions that would do the verification work, as well as the two backfilled labor positions. Because I also wanted to take the opportunity to explain that DPW distributes labor as percentages of annual hours by fund, not necessarily a fixed head count, and that can be confusing, but what that means is if 22% of our labor output for those 27 staff positions is spent on water and sewer work, and it was for 2024, that ends up being about 16,800 hours out of 75,600 total, right? So that means that we have, I think the math is 6 FTE in our water and sewer fund for personnel. So that also means that a cumulative 50% allocation of major roads represents roughly 5.5 FTE spread across several employees seasonally. And I also want to explain, to continue further, that sometimes in sanitation, like for the LEAF program, we often have 12 to 24 staff working not 40 hours, but split time for 8 weeks throughout the season. And then at the end of the year, that means that we have roughly 2 FTE in 226, which is the sanitation fund, doing LEAF operations. So just to say that, that is kind of how we do things. And then if you think all the way back to the pie chart that I threw at you with 50% LEAF, or 50%, sorry, tree work, 25% water and sewer, 12.5 GIS, 12.5 facilities and fleet maintenance, what you end up with, the current split prior to adding anyone is 25 majors, 25 locals, 50% sanitation, and 100% 592. So that's the staff split for those 2 FTE that we're moving. And then I'll say after we've added, if we're able to add 2 more positions, the splits will look like this: 13% in 441 and 443. I didn't want to include another column and make this even more confusing, but roughly 11,000 of the 150,000 that would be added to backfill to grade 1 laborers would go into 441 and 443. And I'll say that in 443, the work that they're doing on small engines and equipment is actually going to get paid back as income through equipment rental rates when other departments use those vehicles. 202 is our major streets fund. 59% of the work, because forestry work in the right-of-way is booked in 202, comes from there. So that would be a $45,000, 211 increase in 202. 203 would look like 21%, which is $12,351. 226 would be 8%, which is only $1,000, $1,100 actually. And then 592 would add 1 FTE because the verification work takes 1 year to perform. Yeah, and then it shifts a little bit, but verification work plus 25% of the other position. So again, this represents 2 senior staff shifts to verification, 2 new laborers that backfill core maintenance. Costs are shared primarily here by enterprise funds, 202, 203, 226, 592, and there is a minimum general fund impact. So just to summarize everything, and I can go back to that page if we have questions and anyone wants to see it, but we have condensed verification timeline from 6-year in-house. That saves roughly 2.4 with the participation rate at 33%. The participation scenarios, even with 33% self-reporting, we still need 5,200 verifications. The staffing model, so Cross-division structure maintains year-round productivity, allows senior staff to do advanced work. It saves money. Efficiency and reliability, internal work prevents escalation and improves responsiveness. The budgetary impact costs are distributed across enterprise funds with minimal general fund exposure. Thank you, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
First, before we go into discussion, will you need a motion for discussion?
I move we approve the request to hire 2 DPW laborers to support the lead service line replacement program and to authorize the city manager to make necessary amendments.
Support.
All in favor?
No, we're not voting.
Oh, we're not voting
No,
yet.
we're not voting yet.
Sorry, have it, all right, get it together. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up for council discussion. We've discussed this before, but there have been some changes that have been made, and I'm opening it up for us to discuss now.
Through the chair. So in your conversation, right near the end, you said that this will have an impact on the general fund. Where is that stated? Am I missing it?
Very bottom of this.
Yep, so the second column, 441, that is a DPW general fund. So 13% of the cost of the 2 backfill positions would go to that fund.
Okay. And everything else for those 2 positions would come out of sanitation, water,
Yep,
main roads, et cetera.
yep. Majors is 202, locals is 203,
Yep.
sanitation's 226, and 592 is water and sewer.
Sorry, I don't know how I missed the 441 being general fund, but, okay.
I should have put the 101 in front of it. I just know what it is.
I may have other questions, but I'll let anyone else.
I appreciate the work that went into this because I know that, I was one of the people pushing for a more comprehensive and plan that also allocated far more time to verification than, I think had originally been everyone's, your preference. But I appreciate you doing that. I appreciate that you put together a comprehensive plan to shift that prioritization over to verifications. I think the sooner, as I said at the last council meeting, the sooner that we can notify residents of the state of their lines and whether they're lead or not, the sooner those residents can take remedial action, even if it might be 5 years before we can replace it, because it very well could be 5-10 years before we can get to everybody's lead service line. But at least they can take actions to keep themselves and their families safe in the short term while they wait and while we try to find the funding to replace all of Ferndale's lead service lines. So, this was a huge priority for me, and I think all of my colleagues. And so, thank you for taking that seriously and really working out a plan that is comprehensive. I mean, you've really mapped out how every fund can absorb something so as to minimize the general fund impact and maximize the impact on the non-general funds, which is obviously our priority, our preference. And I think I'm just going to stress again that this plan would not require us to, aside from the already baked in annual plan that we're on to raise water rates, this would not require a sort of additional increase on top of what's already scheduled, essentially. This wouldn't require a deviation from our
At least until we update the
water rates.
Water rate study. The water rate study does go through 2027 right now.
Okay. So we would need to make an early change to water rates. This can be accommodated in the current.
This can be accommodated in the current schedule.
Okay. So we get a 50% prioritization of verification with no impact to water rates. I like that.
Through the chair. So this actually may go to Colleen, city manager. The 12,000 coming out of the general fund is a change to the current budget. Okay. Is there an expectation of reducing 12,000 from something else to cover these costs?
So in the cost restructuring plan that I'll present shortly, the cost savings from recommendation number 3, which I understand there's some confusion about, that includes reallocation of DPW time as well as the elimination of the zero waste manager position. And that is a net impact to the general fund of about $148,000, inclusive of this net change as well. So were it not for approving this item, that savings would be $12,000 more. But we did net it out so that it was already baked into the cake, so to speak, when we go to talk about that subject in another item or 2.
Item 3 on tonight's agenda. Okay.
I will just add one thing that, so the recommendation is to hire January 1, so that means that these numbers for 2026 are basically cut in half. So the 2026 would be 12,000 divided by 2, so you're talking about 6,000 general fund for that first year.
That's a great point, Jim, that these are sort of annualized numbers for the purposes of this chart.
Correct.
The impact on the current budget is really half of what we see on this chart.
Yes.
Until 2027
Well,
fiscal year,
sure.
which you have.
Correct.
Gets us through this fiscal year.
Pay increases, and so that 12,000 could be 12,500 or.
As we're going to discuss later on the agenda, and for the benefit of the public, like, we're getting through it 5-6 months at a time, so, okay.
Okay, part of this, I gotta find my page here. Part of the request, and you did bring it up, was the conversation about communicating the self-reporting. When is all of that going to start taking place? Are we looking at that to take place immediately? Are
so-
we still in the development of that plan?
I'll just say that late November, early December, we are required to and will be sending notification letters to anyone that has an unknown or a lead. So everyone on that list will be getting a letter required by the state, by the water supply. That is going to include a QR code, a link, a request to please submit your self-reporting tool.
Okay. Is there a reason why it has to go at the end of November into December? Here's my fear.
Because it has to get mailed to so many addresses, and we have to kind of still draft the letter and make sure it meets state requirements.
I was actually going to suggest maybe waiting until January, because you get a lot of increased mail, from now to the end of the year, that my fear, and people's lives are a little disrupted with the various holidays that are going on at the time. And I'm just wondering if, rather than it get lost, maybe consider having it in January when everyone's kind of, comatose and, vegging out at home and, maybe more apt to read mail that comes in.
Yeah, I'll say that the timing of this particular letter has to go out before the end of the year. But there's no reason that we couldn't follow that up with social media posts, and kind of do some social media, some other blasts to residents.
Okay.
I don't want to come up with a new idea on the spot, but like there are other ways that we're trying to integrate self-reporting tool, some of the lead participation with some of our other water-related programs and software, right? We have an email list for people that use WaterSmart. We've thought about ways to potentially, if we end up moving to a new system or if we stick with WaterSmart, sending an email list out to try to increase participation in that program, tag the self-reporting tool to that. Just really make sure that anytime we're reaching out to residents, we're including that QR code to just try to drive that into people.
I think that's all I have.
All right. Nothing more? Well then. To approve the request to hire 2 DPW laborers to support the lead service line replacement program and to authorize the city manager to make necessary amendments. May we have a roll call?
Johnson?
Yes.
Polika?
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Leaks May.
Yes. That motion passes, and we're moving on to the second regular agenda item. Although I just want to state that I don't know about any of the other council members, but I get quite a few emails, as you probably know, about the tree replacement and the tree maintenance. So I'm hoping that this will help alleviate some of those emails that we're getting and the concerns that the residents are having.
Yep.
As far as
Yeah,
the
I would-
timeliness as far as response.
the more tree work, the better.
All right,
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
thank you. All right, item 8B, consideration of ambulance purchase in the amount of $391,788. Chief Robinson, up to speak.
Good evening. All right, so good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight. I appreciate this. We've been working on this presentation and bringing this ask, and it's delayed a little bit. So I'm here in front of you tonight to talk about an ambulance purchase request. As we go through this, some people might say, well, didn't we just receive a new ambulance? I'm going to go through and explain timelines and why I'm in front of you tonight. So our fleet overview, currently at Ferndale Fire Department, we have 3 ambulances. We have the 2025 Braun ambulance that we received and put in service earlier this year. We have the 2019 Horton ambulance, affectionately known as Big Red. And then the 2014 Freightliner ambulance that we purchased from Madison Heights to kind of shore up, that replaced our 2004 ambulance we had as our reserve, to try to improve that situation and have a more reliable backup. In this picture, you see the backs of the one on the right is the 2019, the one on the left is the 2014 one we purchased from Madison Heights. So that is our current phase. So we have a newer ambulance that's new this year, a 6-year-old ambulance, and an 11-year-old ambulance. So this is the City of Ferndale's fleet management policy. This is just cut and paste directly out of our policy. And I just highlighted a section in red, which talks about the city will manage vehicle and equipment replacement from a best practice approach, because we want to keep our fleet in a situation where it's cost effective to operate. And then it says we should try to stay within the time frame or mileage listed below. You can see on the bottom there, I want to skip to the fire apparatus. The fire apparatus replacement schedule, we have a really good guideline with that, with NFPA standards. Fire engines and ladder trucks should go from frontline to reserve status at 15 years of service and out of service at 25 years. So we have really good professional standards with that. With the ambulance, it's a little bit more, with our city policy, it doesn't directly identify ambulances anywhere. So it's going to fall somewhere between these 2 items, depending on how you want to interpret what that vehicle is. So I say it's more than a passenger vehicle. It's closer to like the van, the passenger and cargo, which would be a 7-year, 120,000 mile replacement, but somewhere in there, considering what their use are and the level of reliability we want with that piece of equipment, because obviously that breaking down has some pretty good ramifications. So with this, I want to show what a 3-year rotation would look like. So if we have a new ambulance, and if we were buying ambulances, say, every 3 years, you would have a new ambulance as your primary frontline. The secondary frontline ambulance, when we have both ambulances in service, would be 3 years old. And then your reserve ambulance would be 6 years old. When the newest ambulance is 3 years of age, your second frontline will be 6 years old. And then your oldest reserve would be 9 years. We could remove that out of service. So every time when you purchase a new ambulance, your primary frontline is going to be between 1 and 3 years old. Your secondary frontline is going to be 3 and 6 years old, and then your reserve is going to be between 6 and 9 years old. So you see it straddles our replacement policy, that was even at 7 years. So it kind of goes a little bit higher than that, which I feel like is responsible and is finding that balance, since that would be a reserve, and I feel like it could do that. This is going to allow our stuff to stay reliable, have rotating fleet, and then what's coming out of service will still have some value to help offset the purchase of a new one. So this is what, every 3 years sounds very frequent, but I want to give a visual to kind of show what that means to what would be in service and how that matches up with our current fleet management policy we have here in the city. So I'm going to skip right to the numbers because I want to get this out before we continue the conversation anymore. We do have an opportunity right now from Braun, which is the company we just purchased the last ambulance from. And I'll talk about some of the safety features and why we went to that vendor over the ones we had before. We have an opportunity to assume an in-process order with the estimated completion of October 2026. If you place a brand new ambulance order right now, it's a 3-year build-out, which is what we saw with our last one. Sterling Heights was ordering 3 ambulances. They had some issues with their fleet. They had to buy a ready to go, so they went to a different vendor, found an ambulance that they could purchase right now, so they canceled one of theirs they had on order. We have the opportunity to kind of like step in and take over that order that's already kind of in queue, which is why we'd be able to get it in a year's time. We would be able to do a change order, so change what they place as their order and make it match what our last one was, so we would have sister ambulances that were built the same and designed the same. And then we do have, I asked, of course, because I want to know what is the savings to us if we assume this over placing a brand new order. It's about $7,000 because we do get their pricing, which gets us ahead of price increases from when they place the order to when we place the order now. Now, the end cost, this goes back to all the crazy price increases we're seeing across that until legislation or something gets in the way of all these exuberant price increases, it is a $60,000 increase over the last one we purchased for a total cost of $391,788 if we don't change anything about it. So that is the numbers where we'd be and the opportunity we have. So now I want to kind of talk about the plan going along with this to kind of finish flushing out my request tonight. I actually recommend that if this purchase is approved, the 2009 Horton is the ambulance that we sell out of our fleet with the receipt of the new one. It may seem a little counterintuitive with us having a 11-year-old ambulance of 2014, but I'm going to explain why I feel like this is a better decision for our city. The 2019 has 98,311 miles as of just the other day, so almost 100,000 miles already. It is a crew cab, you can see, so in the picture on the bottom left, if you're looking at the screen, that is affectionately Big Red, that is our ambulance. The crew cab, so you see it's a full cab with the front and back seat, which makes the ambulance large. It fits into Station 1, it does not fit into Station 2, unless we remove the fire engine. So that's a little difficult operationally, because you like your fleet that you can move between your stations as they're built currently. Now, I cannot speak as to why this vehicle was spec'd this way. It was before I got here, and it would be unfair for me to make any assumptions or any statements as far as why this was built and ordered the way it was. The only thing I could do is look at what I feel is the right fit for our stations and our city as it sits now. So having ambulances that fit in both of our stations that can be moved back and forth based on if one's out of service and not be committed only to a single station. And we also have to think too, if we do renovations on a station, this ambulance can't run out of the other station. So there's a lot of operational concerns. And many of you have seen the size, so tighter streets, areas, it's not necessarily, and with our staffing, we don't need something that carries 4 people up front. On the right here, what you're seeing is, I looked to see what type of comps I could find online to give us kind of a starting point idea. If we sold this ambulance, what is the value? I was able to find one 2015 Horton. It has similar mileage, that's why I pulled it up as a comp, currently for sale for $54,900. So it gives us an idea what we might be able, the resale value of our ambulance could be. So our other 2 vehicles, this is the pictures of the cab, so I wanted you to kind of see the comparison. The one on the left is a 2014 Freightliner we purchased from Madison Heights. They have a very robust replacement schedule that they do with their ambulances. So we bought this in pretty good condition, and it does have 121,000 miles, but it is one of our reserve ambulances right now. You see it's a smaller cab. It does fit into both stations. It does have wide mirrors, so it makes it tight going to Station 2, but it does fit into Station 2 in the regular bay. And then we had the 2025 Braun, which was purchased and spec'd to fit our current fire stations. Both stations with the width of our doors, height of our doors, everything. And everything we're purchasing and spec'ing out now, whether it be fire apparatus or ambulances, we spec it to fit in our current facilities. That Braun took almost 3 years to receive, and that's where if you purchase a brand new one right now, it is about 3 years out, and that's where I'm bringing this other opportunity to be able to get one in a year. I want to show you this on the back with the Braun. If I go back one slide, a couple of safety features. I want to point out why we went to this away from the Hortons or some of the other brands. You see the side door actually slides. It doesn't open out with the roadway incidents. As a fire department, we do actually cover 696, 8 Mile. We assist on 75, Woodward, a lot of roadways with, faster moving traffic. Most ambulance doors on the side open out, which makes you blind stepping out and drivers blind to see you. This slides down, so it gives us better visibility and safety on roadways getting out. And the black stripe down the side, some of you have seen this in person, is reflective, so it has a lot of safety features such as that. So this is what the back looks like. Normally you see the black stripes. And then this is just inside, lit up bay with the lights on like this, just the flash on my cell phone, and you see how it kind of lights up. So you imagine if headlights hit it. So down the side of the ambulance on the back, there's a lot of reflective to meet current standards. So that's kind of where we're going to. We're trying to standardize our fleet to all have the same look and a lot of the same safety features. Again, that branding to know this is what Ferndale, if you see these, you know they belong to Ferndale. Again, I just want to bring this exact slide back up to end my ask, so you can have the numbers in front of you, and I have to try to remember them. But what I'm trying to do is I want to get our fleet back on track. Like I said, we have the 2025, we have the 6-year-old ambulance and the 11-year-old ambulance, trying to get us on a cycle where we can have them about 3 years apart, so we can have our frontline ambulances all 6 years or less, and our reserve between 6 and 9 years. That way we can keep a fleet that's going to be reliable, not start having building repair costs or time out of service, and then also when they rotate out, still have some value to be able to offset the cost of the new one. So I'd be open to any questions you may have at this time. Oh, there's one thing I forgot to add. I apologize. It's kind of a really big, important one. I talked about the $60,000 increase. But we are going to be pursuing a $200,000 CDBG request to try to offset some of the costs of purchasing this ambulance. So if we are able to get that, plus if we can sell Big Red between $50,000 and $75,000, it can cover a significant amount of the cost of purchasing this ambulance. Payment for the ambulance is not due until receipt. So if it is approved, if it is delivered October 2026, that is when we would have to provide payment. Okay, now I apologize. I'll take any questions.
First, we need a motion.
I motion to approve the ambulance purchase proposal provided by McQueen for purchase of Braun Type 1 ambulance in the amount of $391,788 as submitted by the fire chief.
Or now open it up for discussion or questions.
Through the chair. Chief, we have 3 ambulances currently in service, a 2014, 2019, and 2025.
Yes.
Okay. The proposal is actually to sell the 2019, and we would continue to keep the 2014 as the reserve?
Yes. Because of the operational concerns for our city, the 2019, because it's so restrictive due to its size and only fitting in one fire station, I also chose that one. As far as the condition of both those vehicles, the 2019 and 14 mechanically are very similar. And actually, my firefighters, most of them prefer the 2014 over the 2019 to operate in. But also operations, when you think about being able to fit into both stations, it makes sense. But also the 2019, I think, will give us a higher resale value to help offset the cost of the new one better also.
But at some point, the 2014 is going to cost us more to repair than it's worth. it's already at 10 years old. By the time we order another one, so what's this, 2025? You would order it in 2028, and you wouldn't see it until 2031, so it's already going to be like 16 years old by the time that we're able to replace it. So I guess my question is, should we have, I'm not, I should preface, I'm not against your decision or your choice to sell the 2019. I completely get that. But I think I would like us to see a plan sooner than 6 years in replacing that vehicle. Even if it's to buy something from another community that may be, you know, a bit newer but older than what we currently have in stock, just to make sure that we're not investing in a lot of repairs. A 16-year-old engine is going to be a lot for as much as we use our ambulances.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the tricky thing with the state is you actually have to think about your purchases in advance. So with this, and the tough thing is when I stepped in, our fleet replacement went off the rails. So unfortunately, there's a lot of money being spent to try to get this back right-sized. I have both of my reserve ambulances should be being replaced by our replacement policy. I only have one that shouldn't. The 2014 replaced the 2004. And that's why we purchased it, to try to get something 10 years newer, and that was going to be much more reliable, much lower miles. So I agree. It was a tough decision, but I tried to look at all the factors and say, okay, I have to keep one of them. Both are seeing similar mechanical issues right now as far as repair time and problems. So I feel like when they're comparable from a repair, and if you have the garage evaluate them, which one is the more reliable, that's why I tried to take that in consideration. They have similar mileage, but yeah, as far as going forward, this one, if we purchase it, would receive next year. We wouldn't want to wait to 2018 for something that will be received 3 years later. We'd want to look and say, okay, if we get this one next year, we want one coming in 2029. So we would want to probably order it in 2026 so that right on time in 3 years it would be received. You know what I mean? So it's like that pre-planning, knowing that when you place the order, no money is due until it's received. But this is where we're at now. As far as ambulances we have a much quicker turnaround. And now the difficulties for municipalities is that so much pre-planning you have to do, because you're looking at some, ladder trucks are 3-4 years out. And so you're ordering ahead of time for something you're going to need down the road. So it's really changing our replacement schedules in that aspect as far as when requests are coming in, and for council when they're thinking about budgetary stuff ahead of when we're even talking about and setting those budgets. So it definitely creates some challenges for us, but that's where I'm trying to pre-plan and set a plan. That's why the one slide where I showed the 3 years, get us thinking, okay, we need to get one in 3 years. If it's going to take 3 years, we need to order it 3 years before when we want to receive it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, our fire department is set, because even though we passed the Headley override for 10 years, we already know that within probably 6 or 7 years, we're going to be at a zero, we're going to start seeing a loss in the general fund. So I want to make sure that, our fleet is set, particularly for the fire department, before we start seeing negative balances in the general fund.
All right, Chief, you mentioned that you were going out for a grant. I don't know who you're going out for the grant through.
The CDBG request.
Okay. And seeing as to how we're pretty familiar with that, what do you feel like your chances are to get that grant moving forward?
I'm going to have to defer this to the city manager.
Okay.
So this request is a part of the changes that the county has made to how it is allocating its CDBG dollars. Instead of the normal direct allocation that communities have received, they've indicated they want to start pursuing larger projects. We would still get the dollars that we expect to receive for code enforcement, But in this case, we would be submitting a request for $200,000 to go towards the fire engine. The reason we chose that as a project is because they were looking for things that were queued up and ready to spend money on immediately. And with the timeline being accelerated to get this within a year, it's actually a pretty rare opportunity to align a grant request with the timeline for when the money needs to be spent by. I would say we've got a pretty fair shot at making that happen. And certainly if we don't get it this year, the indication from the county is they're trying to spread these dollars around. So hopefully that strengthens our positions with next year's ask.
And I'd like to point out that this ambulance would be a regional asset. So as part of Oakway, we're part of 11 departments. And even recently, we've had call-outs. Even we had a request to relocate Northern Oakland County when the incident happened in Grand Blanc. We've been called out to, had requests to Livingston, and when the active shooter happened in Michigan State, we actually deployed resources from this area up there, ambulance and stuff. So we are part of the bigger MABUS groups. With us, our fire department also finally reaching full staffing. Right now, I have some staffing issues because I have people off work, injury, paternity, and a couple other things. But with everybody come back, a lot of people in December and January will be back. We'll have, when nobody's off, we'll have our 8 personnel on duty, which gives us the staffing to have 2 ambulances in service for the city of Ferndale, Pleasant Ridge, and Willow Township that we are the frontline fire department for. And then also support our neighbors, Red Oak, and everybody around us. So it is a big asset that provides for beyond our borders because we are part of a bigger system as being a member of Oakway. And we do have the mutual aid agreements with our surrounding neighborhood, but we will have a second reliable ambulance that would be in service. And now that we're getting the staffing to staff that, hopefully on a more regular basis, we want to make sure we have the fleet that can support it.
And then also, have you received any interest regarding the selling of the other vehicle?
We have not listed yet because I haven't put it out there until obviously before council. Again, like on Councilman Polika's question, make sure that you guys share my vision as far as which one we should be, because it is a tough decision. And believe me, I had the same thoughts you did, and trying to figure out what to do and trying to figure out what's going to be the best thing for us. So I had to take all those factors into consideration. But it would be the direction of council would be determine where we go forward. The other thing is I couldn't put that up for sale till closer to receipt of the new ambulance. So otherwise, I would taken out our reserve ambulance. So I need to make sure I have enough fleet. So if something goes down for repair or preventive maintenance, I still have an ambulance to put in service. So I'm thinking if we did this in the months when they got closer, when we would list it for sale to try to line the two up.
I'm not talking about actually, the public listing. I'm just saying, just in the back of your mind, do you feel like this is something that either vehicle would sell to another municipality?
Yeah, and I see the thing with the crew cab, it has a bigger market. Some places would run that as a squad that need it to be able to move more people. You could have private contractors that would like that because they could turn some plumbing, different contractors love buying all the ambulances because they had the box on the back for all their equipment and storage and supplies. And then have the crew cab on front, you have more room for your crew that you bring to the site. So even beyond emergency services, there would be a potential market for this, which is another reason why I feel like that one could go. It's not the right fit for our community. And, I know, believe me, I wish I wasn't keeping a 11-year-old ambulance, but it's a process to get us to where we should be, so we're in a much better sustainable position. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but I haven't asked around. I just look at the market as far as out there and think who would be interested in this vehicle.
I appreciate you're thinking ahead and trying to overlap the needs down the line. So, any other discussion?
Yeah, through the chair. So generally, when we purchase these vehicles, it's usually like a strip chassis. I think in this instance, it's an F550 strip chassis that we send to an outfitter, and they put on the box, they put in all the equipment. What else would need to be covered in this cost to get this completely operational? Does this include the skins? Does this include any of the materials that we need to put within the vehicle? And this is kind of an extra question. Does all of the equipment that we have in our current vehicles fit within this new vehicle? Because there was a while back, this may be actually before you, or you may have identified it as a problem. We had to buy a brand-new gurney because our gurney didn't even match the other gurneys that other communities were using. So when we were on the scene, all of a sudden, they couldn't utilize our gurney and we couldn't utilize theirs. And you may have been the one that solved that solution, but it ended up costing us another, several $1,000s to.
The interoperability is huge for me, and that was one of the things another thing I identified when I came here. And again, I can't speak to what was in process or decisions made before I got here, but even within our own fleet, our equipment was not interchangeable between our ambulances, which is a problem. I would have to take an ambulance out of service because the cot was broke, and I couldn't take the cot out of the reserve ambulance and put it in the frontline ambulance. That was an issue. We do have that standardized across our fleet, and we also now match our neighboring partners. We were the outlier, the only one having Ferndale equipment when everybody else around us had Stryker. Since that switchover, we have actually supported Royal Oak, and they've supported us when we had something break, and we just seamlessly borrow each other's equipment, which is huge.
Yeah.
With the new ambulance, it's important that quote, yes, the F550 is the chassis, but that price is the full build out of the ambulance, the box, all the wiring, the lighting, there's a graphics allotment in there.
Okay.
Everything, so it'll come ready for us to throw our equipment on it. And we do the graphics with Magix here just because it's easier to do it in the factory, but they build allotment in the price, they write the check to Magix to throw the graphics on after we get it.
Okay.
With the switch, what we would do with like our Stryker Power Load and Power Cot, that's say in big red right now, that would be removed and installed into the new ambulance. Prior to that being sold, that would not be sold with that ambulance. So the equipment would just transfer over. So the heart monitors we've been purchasing, all those things. So that's how we're kind of speccing it out. Things that would have to come with the ambulance is part of the build out. Anything that we would transfer over, we would just remove that from the old, like radios, stuff like that, and move it. We would take it out to Oakland County, they'd take it out of the old and put it into the new. So we would have some install of like radio equipment costs after some final outfitting, but lights, sirens, graphics, configuration of cabinets, all that stuff, all the wiring ran is part of that build out on that quote.
Okay. Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Through the chair, I just want to say thank you again for thinking outside of the box and always looking for efficiencies and finding the 7,000 savings there and making the tough decisions on which fleet to sell. I appreciate it.
And mine, I just, I think for me, as someone who deals with a large fleet and fleet items, I'm glad that we're moving to Braun. I think Braun is the best choice currently in the market. And I think that something that is really important for the public to understand why. One of the benefits of Braun is Braun uses a fully seam welded box. And so a lot of people don't realize is the ambulances that you see on the road, it's not like a fully metal box. It's actually like plywood with a metal coating. And then that's just basically screwed together. And that works for a while. And then it deteriorates really quickly. And you end up having like a lot of leakage, a lot of issues, a lot of instability with the box on the chassis. And so having that sort of like full seam welded, really just a steel construction on the box means that if we do need to eke a few extra years out of an ambulance because of cost, like we can, like it's a little bit more of they provide a little bit more durable product. So if it's like, hey, we really aren't going to be able to keep to our 3-year plan because finances don't allow it, it's not the end of the world if we have to move to like a 5-year plan. Like we can make it work. It's easier with a Braun than it is with like, especially like a Horton,
Yes.
where it's harder to get a longer useful life. And so when we're thinking about making these purchases, they're expensive purchases, but they're also ones that we have to think about lasting for a long period of time. And you've definitely done that. And I think it's nothing short of a miracle that this dropped into our laps being able to get something by a year from now for an ambulance is unbelievable. And I think this is also a credit to you, not only for coming up with this plan, but your relationships in this space and having those connections and the ability for people to reach out and go, hey, Teresa, this happened. I don't need this fire. Do you need this fire engine? I mean, that's what you are bringing in this sort of intangible value. I can't put a dollar value to, but you've created those connections that bring that value and those savings to us because someone calls you first and says, hey, got this situation. You want to step in? And you go, yeah, let me figure out a plan. And then you do. So this is just indicative of the kind of incredibly hard work that you're doing behind the scenes that isn't necessarily just the typical firefighting things that people think about. It's what you do as a leader in Oakway. It's what you do as a leader in the state. And this is very indicative of that. And so just as Councilmember Kelly said, thank you. Like, this is incredibly thoughtful and incredible work.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And yeah, I didn't even bring in the Braun being like candidates for remount. So what remount is you have, and he's right about the product, and that was one of the things we look into when we're looking at durability and, again, the investment. A remount is, it gets to a point where what you usually have problems with is the engine and the mechanics that makes the ambulance go down the road. A remount, they take the box, the back part of the ambulance, off the chassis and mount it onto a new chassis. When you have a product like a Braun, that's much more effective being able to do. So if the motor starts going out, because we do have to stretch our fleet a little bit longer, you can buy a brand new F550 chassis and take the ambulance off and plop it onto the new truck, and now you get, it's another way to essentially get a brand new ambulance, or, you know, much revamped and get a lot more life out of it, and a much reduced cost of having to buy a whole brand new one. So that is something down the road, if we looking at, again, we don't have that crystal ball, running those challenges, we're setting ourselves up for those opportunities to be able to kind of get the newest part that we need to replace on an ambulance, the part that fails, and the really expensive part we could just transplant over. So for anybody that's not familiar with that, that's what he was referring to. Hopefully that made sense the way I explained it.
Remounting is exactly what I have in mind for the future of as a way to make it more financially, once we get all the new, once we're kind of more right-sized in terms of life cycle, I think remounting is something we're going to have to think about as a viable solution.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Well, we have a motion on the table. Roll call.
Polika?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Leaks May.
Yes. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Chief.
All right. Item 8C on the regular agenda, fiscal year end 26 cost restructuring plan. Our city manager is up at the podium. Let me get to this.
Okay, thank you, council. What we are talking about tonight are changes to largely the city's general fund budget. A little bit of background about why we need to be having this conversation. So the state fiscal year 26 budget, which was enacted in October, introduced new changes to how local units will receive funding. Specifically, there were significant reductions implemented to the constitutional and statutory revenue sharing component of that budget. This is kind of paired with a significant increase to planned funding for roads. However, due to the nature of municipal fund accounting, there are significant limitations imposed for the use of the increased road funding under Act 51. So as a result, there is the need to immediately cut for this fiscal year approximately $222,000 from the city's fiscal year 26 general fund budget. I do anticipate, as we've seen from how these changes will continue to be rolled out in future years, that more cuts will be necessary as part of the fiscal year 27 budget process. And I'll reflect here for a moment that we all recognize this isn't the first time that I've had to stand up here or we've had conversations about reducing costs to the city's general fund budget specifically. As part of the Headley override, as part of our fiscal year 26 budget setting process, we identified hundreds of thousands of dollars in cuts and reductions that needed to occur. Most of those felt like wins, things that we could do more efficiently or changes we could make. We're at a point now where they're going to feel less like wins. They're going to start to feel a little bit deeper. We have to look more closely at things we may want to keep, but we need to be more realistic about doing so in a way that maintains our fiduciary responsibilities as well. So a quick refresher on the common sources of funding and why these changes have a greater impact on what is our discretionary funding. As you can see on the left, less restrictive is state revenue sharing. This is pretty equivalent to what property taxes would be like. There's no direct requirements, general limitations by the state when offering its statutory revenue sharing or constitutional revenue sharing. It is to be used towards general operations of the city. Whereas more restrictive, among the most restrictive, are things like Act 51, which are those increased road dollars that we'll be seeing. How does this break down specifically? So you can see on the far right side of this spreadsheet, the net differences highlighted in red and blue. These net differences are compared to the triennial budget that we had previously adopted. So for the current year, before fiscal year end, as I mentioned, a $222,000 cut to the general fund is necessary, but that grows to about $400,000 in fiscal year 27 and $500,000 versus our projections in fiscal year 28. The positive news is we will have more funding to go towards road programming and to support maintenance on both our major and local streets. When looking at how to approach these cost reductions and this restructuring, we do need to focus exclusively on costs that are recurring expenses and not one-time in nature. We can't continue to hold off maintenance problems or defer one-time costs, capital costs, just to balance a budget in a given year. We are at a point where we need to be serious about reducing costs in the long term, and that comes generally through the elimination of either staffing or program-based operations. Additionally, I looked at items that constituted discretionary funding. So not anything that was a core function or a statutory requirement under the organization. Again, that doesn't mean that it lacks importance, just simply that there is not a statutory requirement on our part or a legal requirement on our part to continue to provide that level of service or that type of service. I did not look at eliminating any operational activities that were highlighted as part of the Headley override. So again, specifically, we had a heavy focus on retaining public safety staffing levels and operations as part of that campaign, as well as not continuing to defer necessary maintenance at many of those facilities. And then obviously in everything I present to council, we continue to follow the highest level directive, which is reducing costs while minimizing the day-to-day impact to resident services. So what arose in this first round of cuts is a recommendation, one, to eliminate the priority-based budgeting software. That is a roughly $20,000 annual impact. This was viewed as a neutral impact due to the generally low adoption rate, both internally in that there was not sufficient staff capacity to roll it out to its full feature length, as well as limited feedback and support from the community in terms of its ease of use or adaptability. Second, something we've talked about previously is reducing the frequency of the newsletter. This plan does recommend reducing at least one issue of the print newsletter annually at an $18,060 savings. Third, the recommendation to streamline general fund, DPW, and zero waste operations. The confusion here with the price tag is that it's not exclusive to the zero waste position alone. It does include reallocation of general fund labor expenses that are currently hitting the general fund budget. That needs to be offset by decreases to the sanitation fund, and as we've already seen, increases in revenue to the local and major street funds. It's only feasible with those two things occurring simultaneously. The goal with that reduction was to focus on reallocating staffing responsibilities with no impact to resident services. So that is why resident service focus components were more predominantly featured in the original report. And I will dive into that particular recommendation a little bit more. Next, auditing our software and technology use. This has been something we've been doing throughout the year and having success with. Just recently, we completed a review of all of our Microsoft licensing that identified some cost savings. We're in the process of doing a similar audit with our Verizon accounts, and we will continue to look very closely at all of our software uses to determine total number of users as well as just the general usability of those software. Third, restricting non-essential activities of staff. Not a huge ticket item, but right now there is not a very formal policy in place either for staff or council travel that could help streamline some of those expenditures and ensure that we're focusing only on the training, travel, and conferences that directly contribute to the professional roles or certifications that individuals have. And then last, pursuing even year elections. And this recommendation does come at an estimated $28,400 to $33,200 cost savings. And now that does change depending on whether we have an election that year, the number of elections, if someone else is in that election process with us. But that was the most recent cost estimate from I believe the May election that we had to bear the cost of. So diving a little bit more into streamlining the general fund and DPW zero waste position. Obviously, when it comes to staffing levels, that is something that ultimately falls to the office of the city manager to determine. However, I recognize that there's a lot of public interest in this position. So in the interest of being transparent, that's why I wanted to include this in the plan rather than just make the determination independent of that conversation. When we're looking at these operational considerations, the changes reflect reductions, again, from reassigning costs within DPW and eliminating the position. The goal being that existing services, resident-facing services, are fully absorbed into those other departments, not exclusive to DPW, but particularly as it relates to resident services and composting and public recycling. That is where it makes the most sense to live. This does require a commitment on our part to have the manager's office, the assistant city manager, and myself take a larger ownership role in our climate action plan and the way that it is implemented across departments. I think what we've seen is that the roles and the responsibilities cannot rest with one person alone, that there is an onus on us to more wholly as an organization appreciate and integrate those goals and that vision into our operations. And that's something I want to be very cognizant that we do not lose sight of as part of making these changes. Yes, we have a fiduciary responsibility, but we also have a public responsibility to enact the plans that we said we would. And regardless of what our organizational structure looks like, that is something that I am prepared to ensure that we do. To that end, council and management will need to discuss the realignment of those operations as part of our annual strategic planning effort. And I would make sure that as we are preparing that process, we have partners and the resources in place to ensure that we can do that effectively. As far as the immediate continuity needs, again, I don't mean to oversimplify the roles and responsibilities of any individual position, but I do need to look at the high-level tasks that need to occur first. One, grants and fellowships that are upcoming. I had requested a summary of kind of where we were with grant statuses prior to the conclusion of that report. Unfortunately, it wasn't provided to me at this time, so I am genuinely grateful to the individual who prepared that summary for us tonight. However, knowing what we did know going into this, the fellow assignments, we are prepared to assign as needed to the assistant city manager and the community development director. Specifically, the project-based fellow makes sense to live within community development because it'll be looking at planning approaches. Additionally, the community energy management and other EV program already sits in some regard within the Department of Public Works. There's a lot of ownership of those tasks associated with our general public works maintenance staff, and that is something I've discussed with our public works director. And then broader general grants administration, finance is heavily involved in grants administration for the organization, as well as the office of the city manager, again, myself, and assistant city manager Krazan, who between us have secured tens of millions of dollars in grants for the communities we serve and are fully prepared to take on federal, state, local, and charitable grant reporting and grant writing. Second in the immediate continuity needs is resident services. So again, this is what you saw a little bit more reference to in the report. The composting initiative, public recycling, and native landscaping initiatives. Those are where we would work with DPW. I've been working with the Director of Public Works about what that looks like. For the composting initiative for public recycling, again, makes perfect sense. We already manage waste management within the Public Works Department. He is an active member of SACRA and participate in that process. And we've identified an opportunity to work with a local social justice initiative that hires individuals who are reintegrated after incarceration to assist with those components of composting that may require more physical contact. And then third, certainly not least and by any stretch, is continued climate action plan alignment and reporting, ensuring that we maintain our responsibility to the goals and strategic needs of the plan, as well as what the community has shared with us here tonight. And that will live with my office. The second item I want to highlight is pursuing the even year elections. This is another one that will have more of an impact on residents. The goal here would be to align local elections with state and federal election cycles to reduce the cost of us having to pay in full for elections that occur on odd years. When it is us operating a silo or us and perhaps just like the school district or the library, we still bear the full cost of that in most cases. This would also mean that local elections occur at a time when voter turnout is generally higher, which is during those gubernatorial and presidential election cycles. To make it possible, we would have to make a one-time adjustment to terms that are otherwise up for election in 2027. How that looks is something we would confer with legal on, but we did confirm the change is permissible under Michigan election law, and certainly not a decision that needs to be reached today. That is a process that would require us to adopt a resolution, to host another dedicated public hearing, and likely broader community conversations about what it looks like and what the impacts are. Next steps, if this plan is adopted, within the next 30 days, I would like to implement what changes we discussed and make the appropriate budgetary amendments, all prior to our Q2 budget amendment process. In February, as I alluded, we host the 2026 Council Strategic Planning effort, and that is where we would specifically identify priorities for fiscal year 27 funding, as well as ensure that we have a plan in place to integrate the climate action plan goals into our regular operations to the extent that they have not already been. In March of 26, we'll have the fiscal year 27 budget workshop, and by May of 26, we need to have that fiscal year 27 budget adopted. Again, at that point, with just over $400,000 in recurring cost reductions identified. Any questions?
First, we need a motion.
I move to adopt the FY26 cost restructuring plan and authorize the city manager to make recommended budget amendments.
Support. Now discussions. No one?
Through the chair, questions before discussions. Going back to the page where you had a bunch of things listed of what you're proposing or what you're offering. Audit software and tech use. Can you go into a little more detail about that?
Sure. So as I referenced in the audit we did of our Microsoft subscription accounts, we identified ways to change the subscription level based on user needs. Low access users, we changed to a lower subscription level. High access users or users that had a higher likelihood of being spoofed and needing greater security controls around them, we increased the subscription level associated with them. The net change was a positive that we had previously presented to council and ultimately used the savings to help justify some additional cybersecurity tools. Now, since that time, we've started to do a similar audit of our Verizon account systems, and we would be looking at kind of all of our technology and subscription platforms to determine similarly if there are subscription service levels that need to change, be eliminated, if we have individual accounts that are no longer active in any of those fronts. That is an effort being led by Assistant City Manager Krazan. He's already identified as low-hanging fruit changes to our Verizon accounts, which will save about $2,000 a month on our subscription service. That's why I recognize the low bar at least is a $24,000 savings, but I'm hoping that trend continues into the future.
Okay, thank you. And then the other item is the one about non-essential activities. I agree, and it's something that I've brought up probably it's been a while since I brought it up to city leadership. But it's regarding the use of city credit cards for incidentals. I would like to see a tighter control on that, and I'm not on the committee that reviews the financials, so it may have gotten a lot better. I think you're on that, so you would know better than I would. But also a policy of limitations of what people can spend for lunches when they go on a training, travel training location, and ultimately, I would really like to see the leadership scrutinize some of the training programs that people go, out of city or out of state. If there's an online version that we could take, I'd much rather us pursue those first as opposed to, having to leave the office or leave the city.
I think a lot of what you're referencing now is a great example of information that should be contained in a formal policy. And if this plan is adopted, that's entirely my intent, is to draft what that policy looks like, that identifies what is and is not appropriate travel, that formally aligns us with IRS standards. Now, I will say, from my experience, I don't think the system has been abused. Everything I've seen come through so far has been realistic. I've, since starting here, made sure that finance is using the existing IRS daily limits depending on the geographical region, but just formalizing that into a policy and asking and making sure that our staff are very cognizant of the choices they're making about training so that it is most impactful or most directly related to the work that they're doing. And in some cases, asking them to consider, hey, limiting it to only 1 or 2 conferences a year, if that's what it means.
That's it for now for me.
Probably discussed this enough, huh?
Well, yeah, so I'm, as one of the council members on the finance committee, obviously I had a role in thinking through a lot of these items and working with the city manager's office to, come up with essentially the least harmful results, because, there are always going to be things that people feel very deeply for and are very passionate about, but the crappiest part of this role and the crappiest part of sitting at this table is that we have to find the thing that is the least harmful, even if there's still harm. And it's the worst type of triage that nobody wants to do, but it's the same principle as ER triage. Something's going to be left aside that someone loves, someone feels very passionately about, but I have to move my resources to focus on those core, most critical things. Because the alternative here is I could choose to leave the zero waste manager position in the budget. We could choose to do that, but I would still need to reduce a position somewhere. So the question comes down to, do I remove a DPW employee who's doing the work, tree removals, other things that residents enjoy? Do I cut a police vacancy? I don't think that there would be, aside from Dave, there would be no real support in the vast majority of the community. And so that's not going to happen. It's not. Like, we're never going to choose to cut vacancies in police or fire. And those are the largest departments we have. So then when we have to make cuts, we have to go to the next round, and that's DPW. Well, then we have to look within DPW and say, what in DPW will least impact the daily lived experience of 19,000 people? And then we have to make our decision. Because after that, there's really nothing left. I mean, the city's services are focused around three primary areas: public works, fire, and police. Everything else is very incidental. And so when it comes to having to make budgetary decisions, they're always going to have to fall into those big spaces. Because after a while, it's blood from a stone. There's only so many places to go.
Well, and as I alluded at the beginning of this conversation, we've already made a number of challenging cuts. The CED department is down one position from its peak. Courts are down a position. Communications is down a position. Police are down a position. We did make a cut to the police department staffing levels. And to your point, those are changes that we had to make just as part of our operations to get a budget balance this year. We will have to continue down this path as additional revenue sharing is restricted, and frankly, as the climate between our federal and state partners gets tighter and tighter in terms of what it wants to help locals with.
Can you go back to the slide that shows the sort of impact in the out years of the revenue sharing cuts? Yeah, this one. So, I mean, I think this is just really instructive. In the current fiscal year, we have to cut $200,000. But in the next fiscal year, which the budget we're about to start preparing in the next few months, we have to cut $400,000. And then $500,000 on top of that the next year. That's not easy in a city our size. We don't have a big budget. It might feel that way, but it's not. And so some of these cuts are going to get made. Either they're going to happen today, or they're going to happen 6 months from now. That's the reality. I mean, all of these things are important to many people, but if we run out of money, then we can't do any of those things. The impact on residents when we run out of money is far greater. And we have to make hard decisions. And it sucks. Nobody expected the state to cut revenue sharing like this. This was absolutely not, after how many times, and many residents in this room have seen this council have this discussion at this table, saying, please reach out to your legislators, have them fix revenue sharing, have them fix it. We're getting screwed with revenue sharing. And instead of fixing it, they passed a budget that cut us further. We didn't misspend this money. We didn't overspend our budget. We weren't irresponsible with our funds. We've been making cuts and we've been making hard decisions. And despite that, despite our best efforts, this happened. We didn't put us here. The state put us here. And so it's totally understandable to direct that anger. That's what we're for. That's our job, is to absorb that and to feel that heat. That's why we're here. But at the end of the day, we did not put the city in this position. We are being forced to make really shitty decisions because nobody in this state at a major level takes municipal funding seriously. Cities are being expected to deliver all of these critical services with no funding. We receive unfunded mandates every year, lead service line replacements. Pretty soon, the state is going to mandate that counties have to revisit their election equipment. Well, if Oakland County changes its election equipment provider, guess who pays for the new election equipment? Not the county and not the state. It's us. Something that's not budgeted to replace all of our election equipment all at once. The state creates these mandates, and then we have to eat them and make crappy decisions. Service lines. Lead service lines is the best example. It's really important. Nobody wants lead service lines, of course not. But you've put on us a burden of tens of millions of dollars. Despite what some residents might think, we're not printing money in the basement here. There is no money machine. And we have all of these things we have to do, and we have to make these choices. Lead service lines, or leaf pickup, or at the end of the day, you run out of these choices, and all you have left are the things we want to do. It's not a satisfactory answer. It's not going to make anybody happy. But we're going to be back at this table to adopt a 27 budget that's going to be even harder.
Through the chair, just to slightly piggyback on your comments, I slightly disagree with, we have to take the brunt of everything up here. I would encourage you to contact your state and reps and senators and tell them that because of their choice to slash state revenue sharing even further, we're having to make cuts that you don't like. I would share that with them. We share it with them. Obviously, what we've shared didn't carry enough weight. I'm glad you pulled up this page. They're giving us an additional $617,000 for 2026 for local and major roads. Can we retroactively cover the cost of roads that we've repaired this year, that we've had to cover out of the general fund?
I don't know
With
how
that
much
money?
out of the general fund we've had to cover for roads. It's been funded from major local streets. We are looking if we can use those revenues to pay bonds back early, but that's something we have to discuss with legal counsel and bond counsel to determine what the path
That's the
forward to
only
that is.
shiny thing that I see in this whole turd.
Well, that was the whole sort of bait and switch.
Well, yeah.
That the legislature did is they, it was like, oh, we're going to give everybody a ton of road money. We thought, sweet, that sounds great. And it was like, oh, JK, we're taking away your statutory and constitutional revenue sharing. Well, that's not helpful. I honestly, I'd give back the $600,000 for road funding. I'd give it back if I can have my general fund money back, because as you noted in your slide, and as I think the public, we've kind of talked about this before in Headley meetings and other things, road funding is like the least ideal funding for us to get. It is so legally restricted. I can't do anything with it other than roads. I can't pay police officers with it. It's restricted. I don't want restricted dollars. I want general fund dollars. That's the ideal. They gave me this as to make me feel good. That doesn't make me feel good, because I can't use this for the things I actually want to use it for. Not that roads aren't important, and we need them, of course, but I would give up this $600,000 to have my general fund back, because I can do stuff with that.
Let's see, this doesn't align, that wouldn't align with the governor's Fix the Damn Roads plan, which she wants to continue through. And I get it, she knows that there are communities that are not going to fix their roads locally, and they're not going to ask the community for money like we do to fix our roads. So this is a way that she can make sure that people in other communities are getting their roads fixed. I get that, but it doesn't work for every community. It doesn't work for Ferndale. Through the chair, and this isn't something we're going to be able to solve tonight. This is something that's going to have to be my question or direction. It's something that we would have to look down the road to, but is there an opportunity that we can work with surrounding communities to share a regional zero waste position? Maybe amongst 3 or 4 communities. I'd like us to at least consider, looking into that, having conversations with Hazel Park, Oak Park.
Yeah, I can say that is, regionalism is a theme that has come up very frequently in our finance committee discussions. And this is a great example of something that I would be happy to go to my colleagues in other communities and discuss, potentially a consortium or, a separate operating entity that assists all of our communities with our sustainability efforts. But I don't think we should stop there. That's probably something we're going to need to consider doing as part of the fiscal year 27 budget changes as well.
I don't know if Erin Cattell is still at Oakland County for sustainability. She's not? Okay. Because I was going to say, maybe we could reach out with did they eliminate that position? Okay, but the position's still there. It's just not her. Okay. But I'm wondering if we could reach out to that person in that role and see if there's something they could do working with, regionally for us.
I'd be happy to lead that effort.
Through the chair, I know residents are passionate about our environmental and sustainability commitments, as am I and our council body. I just want to be clear that none of our recycling, composting, or waste education programs are being cut, correct?
Correct. This change does not in any way alter the budget to those particular programs. The intent is that it is still fully funding the resident services, just under different management, so to speak. And I will say we have a lot of other great staff who are really eager and willing to step up in these situations, and I have confidence they will.
That was my next question. So can you explain how the DPW plans to absorb those duties and ensure the same or improve service levels?
I don't want to put Jameson on the spot, but certainly if he has other thoughts, he's welcome to chime in. My conversations with him, as I've referenced, for the composting program, we would seek some additional support from an outside partner that we expect a pretty low dollar value to the needs of that cost. Internally to DPW, Director Jameson is already plugged in to our waste management contracts and services. He would take the lead and assign staff that might be needed as necessary to those operations. Managing the compactors downtown, again, that would fall to Director Jameson and his staff, potentially the deputy director, depending on how he wanted to align those responsibilities.
And then my next question was going to be about the grants. If you could provide the verified total and specify which are active or not. But I think I understand you asked for this information and were unable to obtain it?
Correct.
I have a question. So can we run through the breakdown of the $148,000?
Sure.
Because
I
you've done it once, but I kind of want to do it again.
So I don't have it in front of me, but if you'll recall the slide from Director Jameson's breakdown of how individual labor costs are assigned for DPW staff, what we created with HR was a similar spreadsheet that lists out all positions across DPW, inclusive of the zero waste manager position, and looked specifically at general fund operations compared to sanitation, major streets, local streets, water and sewer, to determine where we could realign those costs. Looking at making a neutral impact to the sanitation fund so that the revenue cuts that we would experience from eliminating the position we're met with revenue increases by reallocating from general fund, and on the major street side and the local street side, increases that can be absorbed from what we know will be increases to the total funding.
So the 148 it's a number of other related general fund expenses that could be essentially.
It's specific to DPW labor.
Right, legally borne by the.
Correct.
By the sanitation fund, as well as the sort of loaded cost of the position itself.
Yes, and as you noted, we can only legally transfer those costs that we can justify, so it's not like I can just take everything out of general fund and put it into whatever fund has money today. I have to have underlying justification for what I'm putting in where.
All right. So everybody's spoken. Now I've been thinking about this and listening to what everyone has to say. And it just made me think just how difficult it is to eliminate positions. And I can tell you that I'm no stranger to doing it. I've been doing this for about 14 years, whether it be on the school board or city council and now as mayor. And it's always a difficult position to be in, almost sleepless nights. This weekend has been unreal, thinking about the impact that some of these cuts would have on this community. I do want to ask, give me 1 second. What's in my mind? The impact of, or the timeline as to when these cuts would take place, considering this budget is adopted tonight.
The goal would be to have changes implemented within the next 30 days so that all the amendments could occur as part of our Q2 reallocation, which occurs at the end of the current calendar year.
Because I thought I saw somewhere regarding so what would not occur within the 30 days probably is the decision to have even year elections.
Correct. That is the one part of this process. And I'll note in the report, I did not include the cost of the even year elections in this year's impact because we already had the election this year. So that is a cost savings that would be into the future. That process will require a resolution of council and a public hearing at minimum.
Through the chair, can I just ask a question? You said 30 days you'd start to implement it. Had you had any conversations prior to give the position that's going to be eliminated a heads up on this?
Yes, absolutely. This is a conversation that's been occurring internally for roughly the last 4 weeks, I believe. I'd have to look at my calendar exactly, but about.
So I just really want to state something here. I do not feel, well, first of all, I want to state that our ability to participate in zero waste initiatives has been, we heard the community say it, has been something that has been noted and we've been recognized for some time. Now, I understand that we have to make these cuts, and I understand that the revenue sharing put us in a bind. But I also know that this coming year is an election year for the same people who are voting on these type of cuts that want to be reelected. And I just don't know if we pushed hard enough. I personally have some of these same people calling me right now. They want endorsements. They want to know what's happening in the community. And I think that I think that we could really be pushing right now, all of us, right now. With that being said, I don't know if I'm personally ready to give up on our zero waste. I think that we've come a long way, and I'm hearing about how it can be absorbed through DPW and other entities. But I'm also looking at, we just approved 2 more people for DPW because they need the assistance. So now we're trying to find ways to spread something that has worked, or we have someone who can manage themselves. We're trying to push that onto another department. I understand and I appreciate all the work that went, and I can see all the thought that went into these cuts. I'm not particularly ready to give up on it. I think that we need to push our state senators and representatives and congresspersons a little bit harder. And I'm just not ready to say that this is it. This is what we can do. I don't know how this vote's going to come, and no clapping for me, please, because I don't know how this vote's going to come. It's a council decision. But I know that when it comes to cuts and budgeting in the city, eventually, a lot of these costs come to us as residents. And I say us, we're at the table, you out there. And I know how difficult it was to get that Headley passed. And I just want people to be aware that we are fighting for a position and a service that is provided in this community right now, but at the end of the day, we may have to come back and say, hey, we need your help again. So I just want you to keep that in the back of your mind, that this is something that may be coming up, that we need your help with. But to that effect, and to all of these cuts, I get it. I'm just saying that in my opinion right now, I want to work a little harder on getting on our senators and state representatives and congressmen before I give up on this position. And that's just where I'm at.
I think the problem with that is the legislature is not going to pass a supplemental appropriation in this session. Like, they're not going to. So, I mean, we can lobby, but we're not going to get any more money. There's no indication that the legislature has any intention of going back into an appropriation session. And so we would still have to make an equivalent dollar value of cuts.
I understand that.
And so the only way to get that kind of dollar value of cuts is personnel. That's the only thing this city has that's big enough to cover that kind of gap, $150,000. So we would have to pick which vacancy in which department, or not a vacancy, whichever the case may be, that we would want to give up instead.
And we're not losing the programs, correct? I mean, it's just being absorbed by a different department.
I mean, I take your point, Mayor. Of course, I would love it if there was some sort of deus ex machina that would swoop in and provide supplemental funding, but the pressure that we put on our legislators when they were in session didn't move the needle. I think out of session, when they're now in campaign mode, I find it highly unlikely that they're going to come in and fill the gap.
Through the chair. Well, they're not going to reverse their decision. They made the decision. I mean, we're not being, we're not trying to be on the offensive planning for something that might happen. This has already happened. We are not going to receive $222,000 for this year. And we either, end without being able to balance the budget, or we make the cuts in order to balance the budget. It doesn't mean that we still can't fight to, bad choice of words, resurrect the position. 6 months later, a year later, if they're able to, if we're able to get a House and a Senate that's willing to, reverse this. But they're not going to reverse it now.
And I'm
not the
not
current.
saying they're going to reverse it. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm just saying that I've heard throughout the night here that we're saying that maybe we can do this to sustain this position, or not the position, but the services, and maybe we can do that. And it doesn't sound like there's a real plan for a plan that we've already had in place and that has been working for this community. I just don't see us getting rid of something that has been working for us and that has made us stand out in a community. I think we need all of the gems and nuggets that we can get, because that's how we stand out in the community. We're always trying something new, and I think that I know we're saying that we can still maintain this, but I know firsthand, and I've heard it, and I feel it in my gut, that it is not the same as when we have someone dedicated to managing a program. Now, and I've seen things just kind of say, okay, we'll do this, we'll do that, and then they just disappear altogether, gradually, slowly, interest is lost. And I just would hate to see that happen. With that being said, it's still a council decision. I'm just saying personally, I'm not ready to give up on it yet.
I totally appreciate your position, Mayor. Nevertheless, we would have to find $150,000 to balance the budget this year.
I hear you.
That problem doesn't go away. So, I mean, we can not give up on something, then we have to give up on something else. That's it. It's a closed universe of resources that we have. And if we want one thing, we have to give up another. It's the crappiest part of adulthood is making that decision about I only have this much and I have to pick the thing. And I personally believe that this is the least impactful thing for the daily life of 19,000 people. If I cut a DPW service worker, that's going to be noticed sooner. If I cut a police officer or a firefighter, that's going to be a bigger problem for 19,000 people. Because, again, the people in this room are the people in this room, but there are 19,000 people in this town.
Well, and I would be remiss if I didn't reference the fact that when you eliminate police and fire positions, you often see dramatic increases to the overtime costs to the organization because we have minimum shift requirements. We have to meet a certain number of people on the road, a certain number of people in a vehicle, and that's not even us meeting what the state recommended standards are. We still operate below those, but we have minimum thresholds we need to meet.
Well, we've had our discussion. You had something to say, Councilmember Gilbert?
Yeah, I just, have we done a time study on this? Is it something we could consider doing a part-time position to manage some of these things, or?
We could certainly do a part-time study. As was referenced earlier, we're caught on the defensive with this and needing to come up with changes quickly. I think there's still more that we can do in the future to look at how supporting these programs looks in the future. Just today, with what we needed to accomplish, I was tasked with presenting to council budget adjustments that made up that gap, and this is how, working with the finance committee, we figured out a way to do that. But I'm welcome direction from council, from the community, other opportunities we can pursue to ensure that those programs continue to be supported.
Through the chair, I was racking my brain, over the weekend about some other opportunities. Parks and Recreation is at, bare minimum. Again, DPW, police, fire, we don't have much of an option. We have 1.5 people in our clerk's office. We have under budgeted in our water and our CED, billing, CED, I kind of consider all that together. HR, I mean, every part has been cut to the bone. I don't know where else we can pull from. I mean, we're even pulling, it's not a lot, but it's significant out of the newspaper, out of the newsletter that the residents love. It's currently every 3 months. Now it's going to be every 4 months. I mean, how old is that information going to be by the time that a new newsletter gets put out? There's not a lot of options in order to meet the cuts. That doesn't mean that we still can't, use whatever leverage we have with the state to say, something needs to change. It's not going to change today. It's not going to change tomorrow. Maybe it'll change with the next administration at the state level. A number of the people that we've had to deal with are moving on to, bigger positions. I'm not going to endorse them. If they've made the decision to cut our revenue sharing, I'm not supporting them for their new role. I'm not going to endorse them. May not vote for them either. Before I get too, on the item of the year, even year elections, I know that this is just going to be an opportunity for us to look at it over the next, couple of weeks, what have you. I think we should look at the idea of having one election, one odd year election every 4 years. Increase the mayor's term to 4 years, and I believe Hazel Park does this. They have one election that they elect everybody. It's a whole complete turnover sometimes of a whole brand-new council, but they have all positions elected in the same year.
I'm not sure.
I thought. There are some communities that do that. That way you only have one local election every 4 years instead of 2 even year elections for council. I know it's not a huge cost savings because then it still falls on us, but it's at least something. It would that would definitely require a change to the charter because the charter does stipulate that a mayor's position is 2-year term. So that would require a charter ballot. But I'd like us to look at that as an option. I just worry about local elections getting lost in national or state elections. We get ballots that are lost on those elections because people don't turn over the ballot and nothing gets voted. I don't want the local elections getting that way either.
I noticed you didn't say anything about all the no soliciting signs that would probably go out during that year. I was like, it would be insane. Everybody, it would be insane, but with that being said, are there any more questions or discussions before we take a roll call? Okay, roll call?
Johnson,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Polika,
A reluctant yes.
and Leaks May.
No. With that, the majority did pass the vote, but I will say that with this, I just hope that you all, there's an election coming up, this coming 2026. Reach out to your senators, congresspersons, representatives, and know where they stand, understand their vote where it comes to revenue sharing, and let them know that these communities need it, we depend on it. I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm hoping that we can come to some sort of resolution that whether it be working with other communities, whatever it is, whether it be having our services not impacted at all. I'm hoping that we can move to that in the future. Right now, I'm just not happy with what we have to deal with at this point, so. With that being said, this motion does pass. We are now on to the portion of the agenda where it's called a council, and I'm going to defer to the city manager for department head updates.
Clerk's office?
Just a reminder that in observance of Veterans Day, city offices are closed tomorrow. Couple things, the election, should be my last election, sort of sharing for a little while, but just a big thanks to the candidates, to the voters, especially to our election workers who helped make this election a success. We had about 28.6% turnout for a local November election for an odd-numbered year, as we mentioned, which is quite high. So nice job to everybody going out there and voting. And again, I just want to reemphasize thank you to all of our wonderful election workers who continue to help us out every single election. To Renaissance Vineyard Church, Ferndale Free Methodist Church, the Ferndale Library, and the Ferndale Public Schools for offering their spaces to allow us to hold our polling locations. And then, of course, thank you to our absentee voter counting board and our receiving board members as well, who help administer these elections on our behalf. So Thank you.
Parks?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a quick update about our Santa and Schiffer event that we're doing in partnership with the DDA. It will be on Saturday, December 6th. We will be at Wilson Park at 1 p.m. We will be at Geary Park at 1:30 p.m. And then we will be at Schiffer Park from 2 until 4 p.m. At Schiffer Park, kids will have the opportunity to sit on Santa's lap and take pictures with him, tell him all of your list items that you want for Christmas. We will also have s'mores kits available, as well as some cookies, and we are working on putting together a holiday karaoke for the event. So that'll be something to look forward to. Any questions or concerns, just contact the Parks and Recreation Office, and that is it.
Communications?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd just like to talk about the current newsletter formatting that we're going to see with the vote that was passed here tonight. So as it's been stated, we're going to go from 4 editions a year to 3 a year, which isn't that disruptive to the seasons. We're going to do still a winter, and then a spring, summer hybrid, and then a fall. So residents can expect to see it in mailboxes in early January, May, and September. It is also going from 16 pages to 12 pages, which might not sound very significant, but it is very significant due to the binding of the newsletter. When we send it to our printer, it has to be in increments of 4 pages. So we kind of have no choice to go down to 12. So based on my calculations, if we want every department represented, essentially it's going to be 1 page per department. Which is going to be really unfortunate for some of our popular departments like DPW and Parks and Rec, who always have a lot of amazing content. So I'm going to do the best I can to still keep it visually pretty, but there's going to be a lot more links and QR codes and such. So I'm going to do the best I can to keep it still as informative and beautiful as it currently is, but it's going to look a little bit different. For reference, we haven't had a 12-page edition since our 3rd edition, and we are now on our 19th edition. So we're kind of used to a larger format. So I just wanted to put that out there to let you know. So expect to see it in early January. Thank you.
Through the chair. Suggestion, maybe reducing the amount of space dedicated to like city council photos and
Yes.
contact information?
Yep, that's on the docket. We're going to combine the city manager and just do kind of a council city manager, page with a little letter from Colleen for the season. So yeah, trying to consolidate where I can, but some of the pages, like the front cover, back cover, table of contents, they're all just
you're kind of forced.
non-negotiable. So yeah, all right, thank you.
Public Works?
Quick update, despite the holiday, trash pickup will occur as usual. If you're a Tuesday route for leaves, we'll have a light crew out tomorrow, and then if we don't get to you, we will be catching up on Wednesday. That's it.
Police?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a reminder, this Thursday at 6:30 in Chambers, there'll be another discussion regarding ALPR technology with the police department. Additionally, I'd like to thank all the veterans out there for their service, as we have a holiday tomorrow for Veterans Day. If you are available, there's a service or observance at the Memorial Mall on Livernois across from the fire hall. And I'd like to thank the fire department for hosting us for refreshments afterwards. So thank you.
Fire?
Don't be intimidated by my computer. Just want to remind everybody, if you don't keep up on it, we will have a change on the 696 project this coming weekend. They will be changing. The reason I'm dialed in is because we do cover that. They're going to switch starting Friday. They'll start exit closures, and then they're going to reroute westbound traffic from the westbound side to the eastbound side. So they can start tearing up and redoing the westbound side. That's why they do it. So they'll start actually the project of pouring the concrete and everything on the westbound side. So ramps that will be closed until fall of 2026. All the eastbound ramps that are currently closed will stay closed. and then ramps that we're used to getting onto on the westbound side. Cousins, the on-ramp will be closed. Bermuda on and off will be closed. Coolidge on and off will be closed. Greenfield on and off will be closed. Evergreen on and off will be closed. So it's a big project. If you want to keep up, there's going to be times where the service drive will also be impacted. My Drive, MI Drive, which is a state site anybody can go to and keep up on what the latest is. But no, this closure is the switch is happening this weekend. So all westbound traffic will be pushed to the eastbound side of 696, and that will be the new westbound from here until Lasser. And then you guys will really hate me in the spring when I bring that update, but we won't go there now. So just be aware. It's going to create some things, but there will be a complete shutdown of 696 this weekend while they're doing the changeover lanes and everything. So you won't, from Lasser to 75, you won't be able to go on 696 at all. From like Friday evening until sometime Sunday, they'll have it reopened for Monday. So that's, if you want more information on that, I can provide it. I just had my update with MDOT this last week. The only other thing I want to remind people, we've had an uptick of carbon monoxide alarms. Everybody's furnaces are starting to come up, but that's just I also want to plug the importance of having carbon monoxide detectors in your home. You can't smell it, you can't see it, you don't know about it. So having carbon monoxide detectors in your bedrooms on each floor of your home, it's really, really important. There's resources if you want to do our home safety inspection. It's free. The link, they can give you more information on a lot of stuff around your house, but just really reach out. We do home fire or smoke detector installations. We don't have carbon monoxide detectors to donate. Very limited. We might be able to get a couple, but have them in your house. Keep yourself safe. If you have work done, get the permits, have the inspections. Make sure that if you change hot water heaters, furnaces, you're doing your, all your maintenance to keep you safe. And if you ever have any doubts, and you're not feeling right, you think something's wrong, call us. That's what we're here for. We'll come check it out.
Special events.
Hello, it's time to jingle and mingle this weekend. At the DOT, the lower level, there'll be over 80 vendors for your holiday shopping kickstart. Also, and what's even more important is that we'll have our food drive campaign, which we ask anyone who comes to the event to bring a bag of canned goods or dried foods to help make a donation and to support the Renaissance Vineyards Food Pantry, because as we know, there's a real need to help those who, families and individuals who are not necessarily able to afford what everyone you would think should naturally be able to have, and that is a meal on the table. So we want to help these people that are locally here in our own community this holiday season. So please come out, support the event, and support the campaign. Thank you.
EDA.
Good evening, and thank you to my partners, or our partners in Parks and Rec and Special Events for Jingle and Mingle and upcoming Santa at Schiffer. This holiday season, if you are able, we do encourage you to shop small and local to the extent possible. We know that it's tight times for a lot of folks, but also it brings a lot of joy when you visit our local businesses, and that economic impact is tremendous, and when you're able to keep that locally. There is also a campaign through Oakland County for highlighting local gems. There's great ways to participate in this. Just take a selfie or a original photo at your favorite Ferndale businesses. Visit, let me get this one, oakdove.com/shop-small. And you can say it 3 times fast if you want, but you can tag your photos on there, and you're eligible to win one of 3 prizes for $1,000, $500, or $250. So please support your local businesses. Thank you.
And then last, I just wanted to personally thank all the residents that came out to speak tonight. Obviously, it is not an ideal position for us to be in. No city manager, no council person wants to be the one that has to oversee these kind of cuts. I want folks to know that my office remains open if there are thoughts or ideas that we can pursue to continue to meet our climate action plan goals and to deliver on that vision that the community has for its residents. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'm sure the council members also share that sentiment.
All right. Where did I start last time? Did I start over here?
I think you started over there last time. You started with me last time.
Okay, then I'm going to Councilmember Kelly for call to council.
I just want to echo Colleen's sentiments. Thank you to all the residents that came out and spoke today. Your voice does matter. I know, the vote didn't go the way you wanted it to, but, it's a tough decision up here to make. And I just want to, reiterate my commitment to the zero waste programs and that we already have in place. And I know council feels the same way. And then I also wanted to say thank you to Dean for another successful election. I wanted to congratulate Mayor Pro Temp on her reelection and council member-elect Eddie Sabatini on his election. Thank you.
I could use a congratulations. to
Oh,
you.
and our mayor, sorry. Sorry, and our mayor.
Such a hard race.
I know.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
All right, Councilmember Polika.
I have two things this evening. So first, let everybody know that the Ferndale Community Foundation annually awards grants to nonprofits serving the Ferndale community through health, human services, public art, education, and other areas. The Ferndale Community Foundation will award up to $2,500 to 501c3 organizations whose project will make a significant impact in Ferndale. These grants are used for specific projects and not for general funding for operations or expenses. The application deadline is Friday, December 5th, and the award checks will be presented at the December 15th City Council meeting. So I'm looking at Dean to request that that be put on the December 15th agenda. If you would like a application, you can go to the city's website, and on the main page, down in the news section, there's a link that shows the Ferndale Community Foundation. You can get all the information right there. And the second thing I want to share is a personal experience that happened to me yesterday. I was at home, my phone rang, and the caller ID, I recognized it as my credit union where I do my banking. And so I answered the phone, and the person said that they confirmed my name, and they wanted to let me know that my debit card had been frozen because someone was attempting to withdraw $700 and some from a ATM at not the ATM, from the casino, MGM Casino, and that they couldn't, they called them and they couldn't verify the information, so they were letting me know that they were going to put a freeze on the credit card and that they were going to open up a fraud. And they were providing all of the necessary information. Again, it came up on my phone, the credit union's caller ID. They didn't ask me for any personal information, but it got to a point where they said, well, we, in order to proceed, we need you to enter in your debit card number into the phone so that we can confirm the number of the card to freeze or to cancel. And I said, well, I'm not sure if I really know this is who I'm talking to. And he says, well, you're welcome to, not do anything. Your account, will be frozen, your card will be frozen for 14 to 21 days. And I'm like, okay, well, why don't I just go into the branch office tomorrow? And they're like, well, you could do that, but your card's going to be frozen. And I said, well, I'm fine with that. And he goes, okay, well, are you sure you want to go through with this? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine with that. And he says, well, fine, you've just lost your money. And then he sweared at me and hung up. And I tell you, my heart was beating because I'm thinking, did I give them any information? What did I confirm? So I was able to verify with my bank that day, actually with the credit card, the debit card that day. I was able to freeze it temporarily. I called my bank this morning, had a conversation with them. But I just want to let you know that they are getting a lot better because up until he asked me to enter in my credit card number in the phone, I honestly thought that it was legitimate. I mean, there were things, he was very calm, he was very professional, he knew exactly what to say about opening up a fraud investigation, provided me with a fraud number. I mean, it was probably a 15-minute conversation before I realized something wasn't right here. So just be careful. When people are asking you for information, don't automatically think that you're going down the road that you think you're going down. If necessary, hang up and call the number on your cards because that number is going to connect you with the right people. So thankfully, I wasn't financially damaged in any ways. I did have my heart, pumping for quite a while, but just wanted to share that experience that it's still going on. It still happens. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Wow, all right. Councilmember Johnson?
Yes, I want to thank, residents for coming out tonight, for sending us the emails, for, sending the DMs on social media and things like that. I said it earlier in the debate, there often are very hard decisions that have to be made. It comes with being on the council and, it stinks. But I like Councilmember Kelly, like Mayor Leaks May, like Councilmember Polika and Mayor Pro Tem Mikulski. I think we all still share this value of sustainability. We just need to find a way to do it that we can afford long-term, that we can sustain as our revenues continue to go down. So, it was a real blow to lose these revenues. It was unexpected and certainly the opposite of what we expected. I think we had kind of thought this budget was going to come out, the state budget was going to come out considerably more in city's favor. And at the last minute, they sort of changed the funding mechanism for a couple of the other priorities in the budget, and it involved, this outcome. So it's just one of the, it's one of the crappy things that involves, being up here. But in other news, one thing I'd like to elevate, Mayor Pro Tem Mikulski brought it up at the last council meeting, and I want to make sure it stays elevated, is as we move into the holiday season, we are seeing increased, more than ever, food insecurity, not just in the region, but in Ferndale specifically. I know there's always this sort of like regional perception of Ferndale as sort of like an affluent community, but there are a lot of residents that do live in that sort of paycheck to paycheck space. And there are SNAP recipients that are living in a very uncertain situation right now. And so I want to encourage you, if you have the means, and if it's feasible for you to, look at, putting, either money toward organizations that provide this sort of support. There are many social justice and rights groups that are working in the region to help ensure that food access stays strong and as stable as we can keep it during this very uncertain time, especially with federal funding. But we have, organizations right here in Ferndale. We have Renaissance Vineyard Church, a lot of the little free libraries that folks have. Some folks have begun to convert them into little free food pantries where you can put non-perishable items that, it's safe to have them out in there. You don't put a roast chicken or something in there, but just little things like that. These things can make a difference. I mean, it may seem silly, but they can make a difference. And, we can't forget that even in Ferndale, we have folks that sort of need that hand up. And so I want to encourage folks to keep that in mind in this holiday season. You know, give generously if you can to organizations that are, you know, especially addressing things like food insecurity, medicine insecurity. It's another issue. Folks needing to fill prescriptions and other things like that. There are now organizations that are kind of stepping into that gap here in Southeast Michigan and helping with getting people to the pharmacy and making sure they can at least get another 90-day refill, and make sure they can afford that while they continue to try to figure out their funding solutions. So as we move into the sort of winter and the holiday season, when folks need that little extra help, please, I hope that folks will, you know, keep that in mind and you know, help where you can help, how you can help, even if it's just little ways. That all adds up.
Well, I have a few things, so, and then we can all go home. First, I want to congratulate the sort of newly retired Dennis Barr for all of his services for the fire department. We appreciate you and wish you well on your retirement, and hopefully you'll start doing a lot of wonderful things just for you, because you've done so much for us over the years. I want to congratulate the Ferndale High School Golden Eagle Marching Band on November 1st, I believe it was. They came third in the state, and so they did a wonderful job. But I also want to congratulate our neighboring municipality, Hazel Park, who came in ninth. So that's the top 10 in the state, two close municipalities. I think that's great. And also, I want to thank the community for supporting me in the second run. I hope that we're able to do great work together, and I look forward to what's to come over the next couple years. So stick with me, I'm sticking with you, so let's see what we can do together. I want to congratulate my Mayor Pro Tem, Laura Mikulski, for her reelection. I want to congratulate Eddie Sabatini, Councilmember-elect, for his election. And I want to thank the city clerk and all of your volunteers and your team for all the work you put in that day. You always put in a lot of work, and it was a smooth election process, and I appreciated you and the volunteers. I want to actually congratulate, let's see, what else do I have here? That's right. The Ferndale girls swim team. They were third overall in the state, and they're going to the championships in Holland, Michigan on November 21st and 22nd. And then, here we go again, but the Giggle Pickles and Electric Bacon Robotics team are off to the state championships because they've done it again, so. Ferndale Schools is killing it. That's why I'm so proud that me being a mother of 5, my children all came through there and participated in these events. So it was wonderful. I want to thank the community that came out to speak in support of a program that's important to you and a position that's important to you. This community never disappoints when it comes to coming out and speaking with what you're passionate about. You always are coming out to kind of help one another, and it's one of the things that makes me proud to live in this community. So I am hoping that what has been said tonight, we do see some consistency, a lot more consistency more than ever regarding our zero waste program, and that it remains relevant and important. So I'm hoping that we can do that, and I'm going to be watching to see that we do that. With that being said, it is 10:19. This meeting is adjourned, and you all have a wonderful, safe evening and a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday.